Hi, my name's Eric Aaron Lizer. I'm clinically depressed, angry all the time, slightly crazy, a failed artist, and this is the Evening Muse. A lot going on in the world right now. Rioting in the street, police brutality maybe. The world's burning, but it's time that we really kind of figure out why, and that's not going to happen through just speaking through echo chambers. This is not that show. Today, we're going to get into the history of why we might be where we're at. Our guest is a former combat veteran, the police officer that served in Saline County, Arkansas, College Hospital, Little Rock, Arkansas, Missouri. Been on 2 SWAT teams, served with the entry team and sniper team. With the Bravo company, is it 2-7 Cav or 2-7?
It's 2-7 Cav.
Ghost Battalion, 4th Brigade Combat Team, 1st Cavalry Division. Infantry Team Leader, Bradley crew member. Squad Designated Marksman, Intel Support Team Leader, Tactical Operations Center, NCOIC. I don't even know what that is. We'll find out. But he's gone on over 100 combat missions and served no less than 100 warrants, many of them high risk, no knock. On today's show, we'll be referring to him as Mr. Havoc. So thank you for joining the show today. We appreciate it. Now, before we really get into it, there's a couple things I think need to be addressed. Eric Garner, John Crawford III, Michael Brown, Ezel Ford, Dante Parker, Michelle Cusseau, Juan McDonald, George Mann, Tanisha Anderson, Kai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Romaine Brisbane, Jermaine Reed, Matthew Ajibade, Frank Smart, Natasha McKenna, Tony Robinson. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Anthony Hill, Maya Hall, Philip White, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, William Chapman II, Alexia Christian, Brendan Glenn, Victor Emmanuel LaRosso, Jonathan Sanders, Freddie Blue, Joseph Mann, Salvador Elswood, Sandra Bland, Albert Joseph Davis, Darius Stewart, Billy Ray Davis, Samuel DuBose, Michelle Sebi, Brian Keith Day, Christian Taylor, Troy Robinson, Ashams Farrell Manley, Felix Kumi, Keith Harrison McLeod, Junior Prosper, Lamontes Jones, Patterson Brown, Dominic Hutchinson, Anthony Ashford, Alonzo Smith, Kyrie Crawford, India Kager, Levante Biggs, Michael Lee Marshall. We're halfway done. Jamar Clark, Richard Perkins, Nathaniel Harris Pickett, Benny Lee Tigner, Miguel Espinal, Michael Noel, Kevin Matthews, Betty Jones, Antonio Legrier, Keith Childress Jr., Janet Wilson, Randy Nelson, Antron Scott, Wendell Celestine, David Joseph, Kaylin Rockwamore, Deshaun Perkins, Christopher Davis, Marco Loud, Peter Gaines, Corey Robinson, Darius Robinson, Kevin Hicks, Ray Tresillo, DeMarcus Samir, Willie Tillman, Carol Thomas, Silvio Smith, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Terrence Crutcher, Paul O'Neill, Alteria Woods, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Ronald Foster, Stephen Clark, Antoine Rose II, Botham Jean, Pamela Turner, Dominique Clayton, Tanya Jefferson, Christopher Whitfield, Christopher McCorvey, Eric Reason, Michael Lorenzo Dean, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. Now, I know that was a mouthful, but I think it sets the context of a lot of why this Black Lives Matter movement has exploded. Those are just the people that had been killed between Eric Gardner's I Can't Breathe and George Floyd's I Can't Breathe. Since the rioting and protests and civil disobedience has really gotten underway, David McCaddy in Louisville was killed. He was, I think, just trying to serve meals. It was an accidental death, they say. And Robert Fuller in Palmdale, California, just 3 days ago, was found hanging outside of City Hall. This is all coming off the heels of Donald Trump mentioning that he was planning to have his first campaign rally on Juneteenth, which is the anniversary of the abolition of slavery in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the home to the Black Wall Street Massacre that has since been canceled. Now, this is just to give some context. I know that was a mouthful, all right? But this is the backdrop. But we're not just going to start there. The point of bringing you on and trying to have this conversation with you is that someone who has been in the military, who has been an officer, who's seen things from the other side, from the inside, I think it was important to be able to open up this conversation to something larger. So let's go ahead and just start with kind of introducing ourselves to the viewer. You and I have actually known each other for over 25 years. We met when you were 12 years old and I was 14 years old. And in a lot of ways, I think we had similar roots, not the same, but similar roots, and have chosen two very different paths since coming out of the soil that kind of created both of us. So why don't you go ahead and just let the viewer know what you've seen and the path you've done and why you'd be qualified to speak about policing, military, and the perspective of the officer.
Absolutely. Once again, Eric, thanks for having me on. So I began my my law enforcement career in 2004 in a small town in Missouri. Shortly after that, I moved down to Arkansas. After about a year and a half of small town policing, I enlisted in the U.S. Army, deployed as an infantryman, came back, served my 3 years, went right back into law enforcement. And this time coming back, I actually started in the jail, worked my way up through the ranks, back onto patrol and SWAT, and then eventually found myself working as a cop in at basically a teaching hospital here in Little Rock, Arkansas, which was just a very, very different, non-traditional law enforcement role, but it also gave me a new perspective as well. So I was grateful for the opportunity. I'm no longer in law enforcement. Total capitalist now. But that being said, after seeing everything that's going on, I mean, I think there's a lot that kind of gets lost in the echo chambers, the rhetoric, etc. And if I can shed any light on the other side of it, I hope I can do that justice.
And I think it's important to broaden the conversation. I mean, like I said, we chosen two very, very different paths. When I first moved out from home and I went to college, I didn't know what I was doing, so I studied business. And after 2 years of that, I rejected it. I think I had opportunity if I wanted to fall into a lot of the fast track into the executive world. And this is just before the cyber boom. I know people that fell into Twitter, fell into Facebook and Yahoo and a lot of these companies just because they just had lived up in the Simi Valley adjacent area, San Jose and whatnot, and needed jobs. And I couldn't do it knowing, one, I didn't want to make my life about chasing money. That didn't appeal to me. And two, knowing just coming from poverty, I didn't feel comfortable, having to make that choice, knowing that it was at the expense of others. I then went into the entertainment industry for a while. and had options to go that route, but I didn't want to fall into something where I felt like I had to sell my soul, or not to be flippant about it, but not to be honest with who I am. There are a lot of sociopaths in that industry itself that I saw advancing, and I was like, okay, I don't want to just have to be something I'm not to get to where I want to be. So, I've been a traveling salesman in the country. I ended up getting my Class A, driving trucks at night in the country that way, and really to have an opportunity to see how different this nation is in its different pockets, its different territories. And I think all that comes into play. So what I hope is through this conversation we're going to have, it's going to allow us to contextualize a lot of the layers of what's going on and broaden it to people that haven't had the same opportunities and experiences that we've had. So let's just start with talking about where we are today. I think the most obvious place to start is with the protests, the riots, and the looting. Okay. So I guess you could say, when we mentioned everything up front, all the deaths, that's why we're at the point now. Civil disobedience, civil unrest. I think it started with Kaepernick. Well, that's not even saying that's where it started. It started, in Selma or wherever. We've gone through decades of trying to face systemic racism, but I think Colin Kaepernick was trying to do this peaceful protest during the NFL games, take a knee to bring awareness to the Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of these deaths. It was just shot down across the board. Okay.
So if I may, and by the way, I don't know if you noticed, I still can't see you on my end.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so, and maybe I remember it differently. I think the first time I really started seeing, the Black Lives Matter movement come into effect was, really around 2015. We had the Ferguson incident, just north of me here in Missouri, and I think that was the first time where I think a lot of people really started paying attention to the disparity. I appreciate you actually, naming everybody that you did that died before. I think it's really important that that we recognize that each one of those people, was an individual. Like they're not just a group of people. I feel that to loop them all in takes away something from them individually. So I can't. It's I don't believe that it's right to just put everybody in. Hey, you're in the group of people that died at the hands of law enforcement. I want to believe that everybody's life is more unique and more special than just, hey, you're a statistic in this. Also, to say that every one of those facts and circumstances are different. That's in no way, shape, or form negating the loss of life. That's just simply stating, hey, we can't. I think it's a disservice to them to just say, hey, you're nothing more than a person that died who happened to be black at the hands of law enforcement.
Right.
Yeah. As I was saying, I think that was the first time that the general public really started noticing, there's something seems to be amiss, and rightfully so, and obviously with what's going on now, things have certainly come to a head, and now it seems that there's a lot of people raising their voices, and I don't know, it's we're seeing a very weird coupling and a very weird separation of groups that otherwise I feel wouldn't have anything to do with each other. But hey, while the powder keg's lit, you might as well throw some gasoline on it, right?
Well, I mean, so you got to think with the the whole Black Lives Matter movement, it's to not just bring awareness, but eventually to lead towards change, systemic change that
Hmm.
has been ignored. So when you're saying there's a lot of groups that are at a head, I think that's a big part of the issue is you got people on the side that don't want to see anything change, which I think is just fostered by our history of white supremacy. And we'll get into that, that are directly having their entire ideology challenged. You know, they're being confronted with what I believe is a lie at the core of their being, which is we deserve to be in a certain place and others that aren't like us. Because right now this is the tip of an iceberg. Okay,
Hmm.
Black Lives Matter at the head of a much deeper issue that involves, you know, our mistreatment of the Native Americans, Asians, you know, Latinx people. And I'm starting to use the term Latinx because if you think about it, Hispanic comes from Spain, España, which it doesn't cover the multitude of you know, Latin people in the world and the very different situations that have gone on through their different countries and whatnot that are here now. The queer community, women, these are all going to have to be confronted by us as a nation. We're in group therapy right now. And that's why when people say Black Lives Matter, it's a beginning, because if you can't say Black Lives Matter, then you're not going to be able to start confronting all these other individual issues, which brings me to the next point, the whole all lives matter phenomenon as a rebuttal. What do you think when you hear the phrase all lives matter?
You know, I put it like this. There's actually a couple things I want to address. So the first being, hey, we're noticing a marginalization of people that are different, and I want to bring to light that's not a new development. And when I say that, it's what I mean to say is, so if you look back at World War II, you'll find that U.S. soldiers had a really hard time, and this is documented with the firing rate. Basically shooting people that looked similar to them. The Germans versus in addition, in contrast to the white Americans, they looked like they could have been brothers, right? And then if you versus the comparison with the Vietnam conflict, and now you have a much higher, I believe, 70 to 80% higher. And it's because people have an ability to create psychological distance from people that don't look similar to them. So this is not something new or new to to America. This is just something that's you know that just is. This has been happening for a long time. There's always been tribal conflict, and the savagery in that conflict is always kind of expanded on, if you know if the two sides tend to look different, if they can create that psychological distance. Um, so and there was a second part to that I wanted to get into. What was the second part of your question?
So what do you think when you hear the term all lives matter? What does that mean to you?
So I think I think I take a little bit of offense to it. It's like it's kind of like going to like the Susan G. Komen breast cancer event, and then someone shouting, "Hey, colon cancer is important too." Yeah, that it is. But right now we're addressing this. So anything that takes away from the root cause is it's kind of offensive. Yes, all lives matter, but more more so right now we need to address what's going on in marginalized community, i.e. the black community, other marginalized communities, the queer, trans, etc. I think you know but yes, right now we there's a problem that needs to be addressed, and the people that are black in this country really need to feel heard, and I think that's important.
Okay. So then what about the response with Blue Lives Matter?
Um, I mean, again, oh shoot, hold on one sec.
All right, looks like we briefly lost him. Hold on one second. We're going to be able to bring him back. 1 second. We just got you back, Mr. Havoc. Go on. What were you saying?
All right, so yeah, I mean, I think you know, look, cop lives matter. It's a hard job. It's an impossible job to do right, and very, very hard to screw up. And that being said, I understand the law enforcement point of view. Right now, they feel attacked. They are attacked. I mean, so you
Are
know,
they
with,
are they being rightfully attacked?
so so let me give you a little context, right? There's about a million cops, right? Or yeah, and I'm just shoot from the hip on that number.
Sure.
That go about their lives every day. They do their job. They do the best they can, and you never hear about them.
Mhm.
They show up. They do the right thing for the right reasons every time, and they're being they're being looked at as this guy Chauvin. Um, just like no two people you know are created differently, but you can't judge the actions of all based on the actions of a few. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think they feel attacked, and let's face it, I got into law enforcement in that post 9/11 era where hey, cops, firemen, I mean, we were looked at as as heroes. We got some good reverence, and then and just as it's happened historically, I mean, and then of course you know the we our favor in the public started to trend downward. And I also gotta mention, I got into law enforcement in 2004. I left in 2015. Right, the world of policing has changed very, very drastically just in the past 5 years. It is not the same as it was. You no longer had, these videos taken out of context. Someone holding a phone on you while you're just trying to conduct a traffic stop, things like that. It's a totally different environment, and yeah, in some cases, you're getting accountability in an area where there previously was none. Um, and in other cases, you get some inflammatory responses to what are actually pretty benign situations.
Well, hold
So,
on a second. Let me stop you really quick with that because I feel like that's a big part of the situation is like you're saying with the cell phone cameras and whatnot. Is
mhm.
I don't think much has changed as much as people that weren't exposed and didn't realize how much of the some criminal behavior I call it or going over the steps necessary to control the situation, power tripping. A lot of that stuff is just being more exposed than I
Mhm.
think has ever really seen before.
So, I when we started first introducing body cams and body mics to the police department, I you know I thought it was great because in my case, it exonerates you if you're doing everything right, and if you're doing something you shouldn't do, then it gets bad officers gone, and that's a good thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of
So
people aren't even turning on the body cameras.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
They're showing a lot of officers that aren't even turning on their body cameras. They aren't using them.
Yeah. And that's that in and of itself is I'm not going to say it's indicative of culpability, but at the same time, if you have an officer that keeps getting gets complaints of hey, this guy was heavy handed or he kept coming on to me or whatever it is, and every time those complaints are the camera's conveniently off, you know is that it's not prima facie evidence, but it is indicative of a pattern of behavior that needs to be investigated further. Um, at the same time, as a guy that's been exonerated by body cameras, I'm very, very much in favor of them. So um, what I'll tell you what I'm what a an issue that's that started really coming to light when I was still on the streets is pulling people over and they're waving a camera in my face, saying, "Man, what the fuck did you pull me over for?" And now
Mhm.
we have a situation where it's like, "Hey, I pulled this guy over because he ran through a stoplight." Um, or maybe an equipment violation, and now I've got to deal with diffusing this guy, and it just adds an extra layer of of hostility and unknown, and it's definitely an agenda driven encounter, and it's let me put it like this: if you're a cop, you don't know what's on the other side of that traffic stop. And what I mean by that is, every time you pull someone over, you don't know what their intent is. You don't know anything about them, and vice versa. You got to remember, the majority of the time, depending on where you work, what time you work, there's a good chance that the majority of the time the calls you're going to is you're seeing people at their absolute worst. It's going to be on the worst day of their life, and you've got to handle it the best you can. So there are times where it's like I've pulled someone over and and in my head I'm like, okay, what is this going to be? Man, I just hope this is a very very easy stop. Like let's just get through this. Everybody goes home. No big deal. That's the ideal. You know, um, but and now you've got an added layer on top of that. So you know, it's just it's a tough spot for everybody.
I,
Like
I think with all this talk of criminal justice reform and police reform, it would actually be to the benefit of officers as well. They just have to be on board and understanding what these changes are. And we can get more into detail about that later because I want to build into it. But there's a lot of thoughts that I had as far as non-lethal weaponry and stuff like that, and
mhm.
difference in practices and taking a lot of the stress off of the officers that I think should be brought into it.
I'm sorry.
Talking,
Eric? Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry, you got a little garbled on there.
yeah, I'm hearing it on your end. There's a little echo. I don't know if I'm peaking, but um, essentially, we'll get more into it down the road in the conversation. But a lot of these changes that are being proposed, I think, would be to the benefit of officers as well, and we can talk about those a little bit further down. Right now, what I want to talk about is: have you heard of the four pillars of a civilized society?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what are they as you know them?
Yeah, and I'm drawing a blank on the order of them. Um, if I remember right, it's going, safety, security, community. If you want to fill in the blanks on on the last two.
So as I know it, and if you Google it, there's different interpretations based on it online. If you look at it, I saw it as trust in academia. You have a educated society, properly, honestly educated, an honest media to be sort of a fourth estate to give the people an honest assessment of what's happening in their country and their world. Um, Science, faith in science, learning knowledge of what we can, and faith in that science, and an honest government that's working for the benefit of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right now, I feel like those are all systematically being torn down purposely by certain people in both media and government for the benefit of a minority. When they talk about a 1% or whoever, Trump has outright said I love the uneducated. He said that once. He's like, I love the uneducated in one of his rallies. And I think it's because they're easier to control, get on side. There's almost no faith in media because there is fake news on both ends, more op-eds, opinion based, that those echo chambers we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There are still flat earthers out there, and people that don't want to believe in any sort of science, people who are full on saying COVID-19, not even just COVID-19 is the government hoax. Why don't people say coronavirus is the hoax? I'm like, wait, you just don't believe in coronaviruses now? Like, I'm blown away by where some people are at. And then government. I think our government is being destroyed, or at the very least, isn't working for the benefit of all our population. And I don't think it ever has. So, in extent, the social contract has been broken. All right. And I think we need a third revolution, which is to a large extent where we're at right now. And this is not a new belief on my part. I've felt this way for a very long time. Very long time. So let's take a minute to talk about, let's call it a brief history of isms, okay? Because I think the superpowers in the world have all kind of been based in philosophies on different types of isms. So what do you know about barbarism?
I mean, so are we talking about as far as just barbaric acts committed from one person to the other?
Yeah, and in countries, like entire countries, and just as philosophy.
Well, I mean, I think I spoke on it earlier. I think we've always found that people that can create a psychological distance between themselves and people that look different than them, their levels of of brutality or barbarism is increased. I actually want to believe that as a whole, we're getting a lot more humane. In the not just in in well, I'll put it like this: the things that even how we punish people. If we look back 100 years when people were drawn and quartered, I mean, can you imagine that being something that's just part of our criminal justice system now? I mean, by and large, as a whole, in some ways, we are becoming a lot more humane because now the thought of that is just, I mean, it's horrible.
That said, we just saw a man die from having a knee on his neck for 8 minutes. So, I mean, that's fairly barbaric. So, yes, there has been incremental change, but as far as a philosophy, that's what I'm thinking. Yes, I agree with you. Things are getting better from the past. It's always been work. It's always been work. Just hygiene, technology, science, just daily life. It's always been more extreme. There's always been stronger hate, more overt hate. All of that has happened, and we are incrementally getting better as a people and hopefully as a society. But barbarism as a whole has just been like, I'm stronger than you, and I'm going to take what I want. Kind of as a philosophy, kind of barbaric, right? But what about imperialism?
Okay. So if we're talking about from the standpoint of we've got one figurehead, one conglomerate, expanding their control over over a growing populace. I mean, is what yeah, kind of is what it is. I mean, it's nowadays I feel the imperialists are going to be nation states in addition to corporations. I mean, at the end of the day, just it's an ism that just that is. I think it's interesting that right now with the COVID-19 scare, we've seen certain rights getting kind of pulled away, and you know what? Once someone gives themselves more power, they're very very reluctant to get it back. You know, as far as the governors deciding to shut down certain states, etc. Historically, we look back at things like the Patriot Act and everything that went into that. Um, it's it's all very suspect. But at the end of the day, I think you're going to be amazed at what freedoms people are willing to parlay for for comfort. But again, that's definitely outside of my scope of work or my scope of concern currently.
Okay. So, I mean, it is fair to say it's nations, governments uh, taking what they need or want from other entities in order to strengthen their entity or government.
Well, I mean, it's funny. I think there's a very weird. It's very hard to see the lines between nation states and things like big oil, big energy, etc. Like I can't really tell where those lines are ending. They're more blurred now, in my opinion. Not I'm not a geopolitical expert. Just a guy that's been around the world. But I can't tell where that line starts and ends because it gets very fuzzy. When you've got you go to war and you see a bunch of contractors that that are owned by the vice president. It's it stands to reason that should bring up some tiny little red flags. But at the end of the day, that's not what I wasn't there for that. So,
Okay.
at the mission first.
Okay. What about colonialism?
Same thing.
Colonizing nations, taking over people, taking over land, changing regimes in areas to benefit yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about authoritarianism?
So it's a tough one. As a boots on the ground guy, you're really more concerned about what's right in front of you. So a lot of these big picture things, they're not. The why. I don't want to say. When you're a soldier, the why is secondary to the now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, um, I hear a lot of people, a lot of what I got was, hey man, why are you going to war for oil? Leave the Iraqi people alone. It's not our problem, etc. Um, the reality is, I didn't, why we're there didn't matter to me. You know,
Mhm.
my buddy's going, and I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that he comes home, and he's going to do the same for me. And it's the same people that say that are the same guys that will always say, "Man, I could never join the military because if a drill sergeant got in my face, I'd knock him out."
Mhm.
No, you wouldn't. No, the fuck you wouldn't. Um, so you know, yeah, these the isms are get questioned from a place of of safety and comfort. When you're on the front lines, the why, the isms, they don't really matter. It's just the mission, and it's just going, and it's just doing what you can to go home. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of similar to being a cop. You know, say you get dispatched to a domestic dispute, and it's just husband and wife are fighting, and it's you ask the wife what happened. Well, this asshole burned the toast, and the husband's like, well, she's a fucking bitch. Yeah, it's not about the toast. It's not about her being a bitch. There's a lifetime of problems, and you've got to decide how to handle it. What really started the thing, where the conflict began, kind of immaterial to the here and now moment, which is all right. Are either is somebody in danger? Is somebody going to get hurt? What is my what's necessary for me, for me to do right now that's in the interest of the greatest good, for serving justice and for safeguarding the public. You
Okay,
know,
I think it leads directly into this next one because this is kind of at the root of what is conflict in the country too. What's your take on fascism?
so define fascism for me.
Okay, okay, Google. What is the definition of fascism?
According to Wikipedia, fascism is a form of far-right, authoritarian ultranationalism characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, as well as strong regimentation of society and of the economy which came to prominence in early 20th century Europe.
Sounds like
Far right authoritarian ultranationalism characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, and strong regimentation of society and the economy.
yeah, that sounds all bad to me.
So when I hear anti-fascist, I'm all for it. In fact, I would consider myself anti-fascist.
Well, and as an Israeli-born Jew, I'm against anything that's indicative of, of systemic oppression of might by or might by right or right by might. Um, so anything that sounds close to that, I'm not about that.
Bringing up being an Israeli-born Jew creates a whole other wormhole we could go into about the nation. But yeah, but let's not go down that road because that's a whole other show. There is a lot to say about the country going on and the power. That's like I said, that's a whole other show. But in America right now,
Hmm.
we have the rise of fascism. Trump, I would say, is fits fits the suit of a fascist leader, and
Hmm.
when I hear this anti-fascist movement,
Hmm.
it's not so much boots on the ground. Like when I hear, oh, Antifa, and there's these meetings being organized and it's being led, and things, I think that may be true with regard to Reddit and trolls and other people who are trying to create this false narrative, or maybe people that just want to stir some shit up. But I think more so you have people directly at odds with some of these more white supremacist organizations and hate groups out there that are fighting hate with hate on the ground right now. But I consider myself anti-fascist.
Hmm.
I'm not necessarily a part of any organization. I'm not, I don't get any Antifa newsletters, but ideologically, I am full-throated anti-fascist. And if anyone says that they're profa, I guess that would be the opposite. Then I would want them to just call themselves what they are and say, "Hey, I'm pro-fascism," instead of trying to use this thing anti-Antifa.
Well, okay, so um, here's the thing. I don't know anyone that is going to up and up say I'm a fascist and be like and wear that as a sign, just as a symbol of pride. Like even my most far right leaning friends are like, that's just not something that they identify with.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, look, here's the thing. we live in a democratic society where, in theory, we elect our representatives and our leaders. Do I, as a upper middle class guy, feel like I'm adequately represented? In Washington? No, I feel like we're living totally separate lives than the people that represent us. But that being said, you look at the alternatives to democracy, and I haven't really found a good example um, that works. And here, look, democracy's got its flaws, of course. It just seems to be the best we've got so far. When people talk about change and they talk about ideas, and I'm all for it, but there's got to be a point where it's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, what are you actually going to do? So, we talked about, hey, let's overthrow the government, let's kick these fascists out of office, etc. I mean, we've already got the mechanism in place to do that, and it's voting, and nobody has to get hurt. So when I see like things like what's happening in the greater Seattle area right now, and I'm hearing about a 7 block area and now they're putting up borders, they're arming people with guns, and supposedly like one of their leaders has a bunch of sexual assault allegations against him and is threatening suicide. So, and that's the Chaz movement. Am I correct on that? Um, it shows that we've seen this kind of struggle over and over again. People aren't liking how things are run, and then someone puts themselves in power, and they're not real good about dividing that power up, and they take advantage of it. And it seems like we've already got a good safeguard, in our government, the best that we've got so far, anyway, to prevent that from happening. So, look, I'm all for change. I'm all for making things better. Um, and I feel like the mechanism for change it's already happened. It's maybe it's not being utilized as much, and there's probably some more steps that can be taken. But I feel like the groundwork's pretty well laid out.
But it's not benefiting everybody equally. Like even what's happening in Seattle, there's a bunch of separate battles going on all across the country, and I think it's trying to be split into maybe two groups. And that's something I think we tend to do too much in this country is left versus right, Republican, Democrat, us, them, where it's really far more fragmented into like what's happening in Seattle is not what's happening in LA. What's happening in LA is not what's happening in Arkansas. Is not what's happening in Florida or Texas, New York.
Mm-hmm.
There are all these different battles going on throughout the country, and it's just it's too much like to really cast a giant net over the entire thing. But okay, let's move on to fascism really quick. Oh, go ahead. You had something to add?
I'm sorry, you cut out there. Say again.
You had something to add before I move on?
Oh, no, no, I'm good. Go on.
Okay, so what about libertarianism?
Cool. Within reason. So, I believe, on one hand, I think within reason, I think we should be able to self-govern within reason. I hate the fact that whether it's a dime out of every dollar is going to something that I don't feel is represented. I just I I'm not in favor of more government in my life. That being said, I still want the cops to show up when I need them. I still want the fire department to to make an appearance and either get a cat out of my tree. Shout out to my buddy Jason. Um, you know and you know yeah. So I mean, I'm always going to be torn between hey, these are some comforts that I've grown accustomed to that I have a you know I would be sad to see go. And I think in the absence of of certain social contracts, we've all seen that go wrong very quickly. So yeah, I'm a big fan of libertarianism, with certain caveats, like anything.
Okay.
Uh, like so, we've right now our political system is, we've got a president, we've got a vice president, cabinet, senate, blah blah blah, all the way down. Um, you know, I feel like the job, you know, you're not. I don't feel you're getting adequate representation from, if the rest of the world feels that Donald Trump speaks for all of us, he's probably not the best ambassador for an American. And this is just, aside from him, from his just ridiculous tweets and all that, the average American is not, isn't growing up in a wealthy family. They're not growing up in New York, which nothing wrong with that. Um, you know, like where I live, the majority of people are living below the poverty line, below the they're not, not all college educated. There's a huge disparity between, your average American and the people that are representing us across the board.
Mhm. Well, when we go back to just the concept of libertarianism, two things before we even get into that. Getting cats out of trees is a job for the fire department or
Correct.
giraffe. Okay. And secondly,
Hold on, unless giraffes eat cats. I haven't done the research on that.
exactly. So now, I was the president of the Libertarian Club at my college.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, I was full throated, like, yeah, personal liberties, let people do what they want. They can swing their arms and play and do whatever they want as long as they don't touch anybody else. But now, with the rise of fascism in the country, I think we're in a post-libertarian era. You can't say anyone can have any rights they want when the rights they want is hating other people that are just trying to live their lives here. Then you're like, oh, well, I mean, then you're just continuing a cycle of hate. If people want to be libertarians and KKK members, then you can't say this is a philosophy where we can abide by here. You have to set some boundaries. You can't foster chaos in the community. You can't let people scream fire in the movie theater. No, they're not touching anyone else, but they're creating a volatile situation for people that are trying to live peaceful lives.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think libertarianism works so much anymore because of the people that are seeking to be fascist and hate filled and even our nexism, which is nationalism. When you're poisoning that message and saying, hey, what is this country? We're all about what this country is about. Period. I'm about my country at the expense of the other country. What we need to do for us is most important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If people are going to Nazis, first part of Nazi is nationalism. All right, a national socialist is a Nazi. Socialism really got demonized and turned into a bad word, but people didn't really spend much time discussing that nationalist was the headliner in that moniker, and we're full throated trying to create an entire electorate of the people that are American nationalists.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of when you hear nationalism?
Can you repeat that one more time?
What do you think of when you hear nationalism?
Oh, God. So, yeah. obviously just anything that's that seems like a correlate to being a Nazi or Nazism is going to offend me at my personal core. Um, but there's let's define some key differences between nationalism and patriotism.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I love this country. I love that we have the ability to to raise our voices, to peacefully assemble, to address wrongdoing. I mean, yeah, we got some issues in our criminal justice system. No, no two ways about it. But man, the like our system is predicated on the basis that it's better to release 100 guilty men than to release one innocent. Due process, fair and reasonable bail, laws preventing unreasonable search and seizures. I mean, these are good, inherently good safeguards, for the people. And yeah, they're not perfect. But here's the thing: the fact that there is outrage when those things are violated, or where that contract is broken, that's a wonderful thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know? And I think a lot of that it's kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We talk about systemic racism, corruption. Here's the thing: it's great that we have the ability to voice our opinion when those things are bad, because in other places, guess what? Too bad, so sad. That's just how it is. We're going to do what we want because we're in power. And I love that about this country, that we have these systems and these safeguards in place where we can air our grievances. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's not perfect, but man, you try affecting systemic change in in the USSR, or any place that's that's ruled by an authoritarian. You know what the
Yeah,
you know the
authoritarian.
fucking Thank you, regime.
Yeah.
Good fucking luck. So
No.
um, like that's yeah, we've got a lot of work to do, but we're sure doing more than anyone else is. And
Well,
maybe not. Oh, maybe not. I don't know, but we're on the right path, and we have the ability to say, hey, maybe we got some things wrong, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
and I completely agree with you. See, this is one of these places where I think people on both sides of the argument can find common ground, and that is in patriotism. Like I would say, a lot of these people out there that are marching, that are protesting, are patriots. It's as patriotic as you can be to fight for what you believe to be change for the better in the country. That's the difference between nationalism and patriotism. Patriotism can be uncomfortable. Patriotism means growth. Patriotism means trying to continually strive for a better United States. Nationalism means this is my flag, so whatever is happening, I support. Period. End of story. No questions asked. Um, so I think we agree. Patriotism is a uniquely American experience to be patriotic. To try to affect change for the better. And I think we can find common ground there on both sides of the argument, and try to agree, see if we can find common ground on what we agree is in the best interest of the country. So let's move to another one. What about communism? What do you think of
Okay.
communism?
So I work in sales now, right? How much I make is directly contingent on how hard I work, how lucky I get, what opportunities I create, etc. I think when I mean, on one hand, look, I think it's great, the illusion of a social safety net that communism provides. Hey, everybody's equal, but it really it really just kind of it seems like a slippery slope to Animal Farm. In the sense where it's once people once people start getting in power, especially in communist regimes, we start seeing, they're there's still that level of us and them, and at least with capitalism you have the opportunity to make whatever you want of your life versus the whole, hey, this is your role, this is the will of the state, etc.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I think anything that limits a human's destiny or ability is just inherently counter to our biology.
I agree. So moving on, I think the biggest paradigm right now that we hear about in our modern society is capitalism versus socialism. I mean, we recently had Bernie Sanders running as a full-throated democratic socialist. AOC, is out there saying she's a democratic socialist. These are not Democrats. Okay, these are far left thinkers. These are progressive thinkers. This is part of something called the Purple Revolution, which is attempting to break out of the what do you call it? When something's stuck in a mire between the Republicans and the Democrats, the quagmire, between the quagmire of the two-party system that we've been told, it's this or it's this. They're saying, no, we're different. We believe in creating social safety nets. We believe in dispersing some of the money off the top and spreading it along the bottom. So instead of saying, hey, we have the bottom, the middle, and the top, and everyone is going to get the same size apple box to look over the fence, we're maybe going to give the guy on the bottom 2 apple boxes, taking away an apple box from the guy that's already on the top because he's still able to look over the fence, and the guy in the middle is going to get 1 apple box. Like we're going to have an incremental change that is more predicated on the needs of the people and figuring out how to do it. It's different. That's democratic socialism in a nutshell. Okay, socialism is essentially saying we put the people over the money. Okay, we put the society first over the money. And capitalism is saying money and corporations first. This is the first thing we look at. And if you want to buy into the system, you can be a millionaire. You can be a billionaire. If you're Bezos, in 6 years, you can be a trillionaire. And it is at the expense of others. That's the way.
So Eric, let's break that down real quick. When you say he's a trillionaire at the expense of others, look, I don't buy that. And when I say I don't buy that, I mean, look, if I create a widget, the widget sell, let's break it down even further. I design a widget. I build the prototype myself. I invest my life savings into a company that builds these widgets, and the widgets sell, and I'm successful, and I've made tons of money, and like more, etc. Look, I've put the risk in. I did the work. I deserve to reap the rewards, and furthermore, in the process, I managed to create jobs. I managed to give other people a livelihood. Why is that evil? And more importantly, what makes someone else that didn't have the skin in the game feel that they have a right to the fruits of my labor?
Okay, and I think we'll be able to delve into that more when we talk about the systemic oppression that didn't necessarily create the same opportunities for advancement for other people. We aren't all starting with equal footing in the race.
Okay.
So, and I think a lot of these numbers become abstract for people. And the way I started to understand, I think we talked about this, the difference between a million and a billion and now a trillion was just seconds.
I'm sorry, I'm
hearing the feedback on your end too, but it was in terms of seconds. So a million seconds is about 2 days worth of time. A billion seconds was about 14 days worth of time. Or wait a second, no. 100,000 seconds is about 2 days worth of time. And a million seconds is about 14 days worth of time. So we're just thinking about like income per year for people, you know, break it down into like in a year, you're making about 2 days worth of money. $1 million about 14 days worth of money compiled. A billion is about 32 years worth of money. And now the idea of a trillion is like, well, like 32,000 years. It's like we're getting into like some insane, like you don't need that kind of wealth when people are starving in the streets. You can spread it out and you can live an amazing life. If there was a cap, which this is innately anti-American when you talk about like, let's say 20 million a year. And after 20 million, you're going to be taxed a lot higher, 80%, let's say, something crazy after $20 million to go to other programs or something. I'm just throwing out made up percentages. You're still going to live an incredible life. You know what I'm saying? If you have $20 million a year, you're going to want for nothing. You're investing that money. You're still able to do everything with it. Why do you need it? It'll actually help save the world if you're not having to go out there flying jets everywhere and, you know, on their yachts every weekend and whatnot. And you're feeding some of these people who are starving and dying in the streets.
Okay, so let's pause on that for a sec. Okay, let's say you're a just let's say you got $1 billion, right? $1 billion, more money than you could, in theory, ever spend. In theory, all right. So let's say you spend a year just going hog ass wild. You buy a Learjet, a yacht. Yeah, you're wining and dining all your friends. You buy a a Bugatti. And all those toys. Here's the thing: everything that money is funding is actually creating more jobs. I mean, that's you're basically providing people of like that money is going to use. And who's to say that, hey, that guy's not going to spend another $500 million creating a company that generates more jobs. No one's got the right to the fruits of another man's labor. At no point should anyone be ever to say, hey, you've made enough money, we think we know what's best for you. Fuck that. Because here's the thing. If government made an iPhone, it would weigh 7 pounds and cost $6,500. So let's not just stifle the spirit of capitalism. Yes, some people are not don't have it, right? Some people are born with they're just people are born ugly, fat, handicapped, whatever you have. You still have opportunities in this country, and yes, you may have to work harder. You may have the odds stacked against you, but guess what? If you're handicapped, there's still programs for you. They're not perfect, but they exist. Like you can get disability. It's not ideal, but you can here's the thing. This whole you have enough money. What the right person can do with that money can change the world, and it has. I'm seeing Bill Gates being just lambasted for wanting to create a vaccine. This guy's given more to charity than I think anybody in the history of the earth, and he's somehow vilified for it. These people, and this is coming from 20-year-old kids that have done nothing with their lives, but post an angry tweet. So yeah, forgive my my hostility in this, but come on.
No, and I think a lot of what you're saying is fair as long as people have food to eat. Like that's where basic human rights, as long as basic human rights are being met, I'm all for it. Let people to the fruit of your labor, your thoughts, your mind power, your work, you toil the soil, you reap the reward. Great, as long as I'm not seeing children sleeping on sidewalks. People are able to eat. People aren't dying of preventable diseases. Pharmaceutical, pills and necessary things to keep people alive aren't being spiked to outlandish amounts. As long as those things aren't taking place, as long as the social contract is not being broken, then I'm all for
So, so I'll tell you what. How much? You're average guy.
Mhm.
Mid 30s, whatever. You make $45,000 a year. Hold on. You've got a mortgage, 2 cars, etc. How much of that money that you're making should go towards feeding people on the street?
Much
What's a
less,
percentage?
unless we're going to do let's say a flat tax across the board. Because if we did like, let's say a 2% flat tax across the board, and we're still taking 2% of the billionaires' money, it might balance out. The problem is right now we're taking a higher percentage of the guy's money you're talking about and nothing from some of these billionaire corporations. That's where some of the problem lies, because of these billionaire corporations can afford the lobbyists to kind of set the rules in their favor. So let's say 2% that goes directly out of your paycheck. So when tax time comes around, you're not having to take a hit because it's been happening incrementally in every paycheck already to benefit the country.
Cool. I mean and that sounds like a discussion for you and your congressman, and see if you can get it passed in the House. I mean, I don't. That's I great, but I'm still in the meantime. I figure, hey, if that guy that's putting $1 billion into the economy and creating jobs, and those people are getting taxed for their work, he's still increasing the tax revenue. What the government does with the taxes, hey, that's I agree. They could do better, but I don't think it's the responsibility of the people that are generating wealth to create those safeguards. I think in theory we should, if you want those kind of safeguards, they come from government, not from the individual.
Agreed. The government has to create the policy to figure out where the money comes from. Unless they're just writing money out of thin air, which I do think we're doing right now. I don't think any of this money is being backed. When we're pulling out these $1 trillion checks and all this money that's coming out, I don't think this is backed by gold. This is just they're writing blank checks that everyone's getting, and it's monopoly money. We have funny money that's working. But instead of,
And
oh, go ahead.
I mean, but again, it's way outside of my scope of expertise. That's just how I see it. I can't speak to that with any authority.
That's what I'm saying. So okay, so let's talk the last ism, which leads us into the next segment, which is what we're taught America is racism. Okay,
Mhm.
what do you think of when you hear racism?
I think it's when I think of racism, I think it's the applying a hierarchy to human beings based on the color of their skin, or we'll just say their I mean, we're all we have one race. We're humans. We all come from different parts of the same planet, but I mean, the belief that one race is superior to another and another inferior is just it's just fucking nonsense. I mean, let's be real. You had no part in your creation. You didn't work hard to be white. You didn't choose to be born in the Philippines or the Middle East. It's no, there's no pride to be had in being born. Congratulations, you might have been an accident, but that's it. Like it's just fucking nonsense. It's just a ridiculous thing. It's dumb. Racism to me isn't just indicative of just a an lack of forward thinking. I don't know. I mean, it's just nonsense to me. And when I say nonsense, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying the fact that it exists is just bewildering to me, because nobody had a hand in their race. You know what I mean? That it's just luck of the draw.
Okay. So when we went to school and we were taught this is what America is in our history books, we heard about
The salad
the
bowl.
I'm sorry?
The salad bowl.
What do you mean?
America is a salad bowl where we get a lot of this, we get a lot of that, and we mix it all up. Yeah, or the
Okay.
melting pot. You know.
Right. Okay. So we hear all this, but what I think of, to start with, when they talk about our forefathers, okay, Mount Rushmore, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson. Who am I forgetting? Who else do we have? Our forefathers, the forefathers of our nation.
What would we have? Edison, Lincoln, Washington.
Okay. So but generally, it's like the people that had the first revolution, the American Revolution. These are the forefathers of our country, right?
Okay.
Washington was the general, right? In America's army. He ends up becoming our first president. Benjamin Franklin is an inventor. Is that essentially what he was? He was a thinker. He was a thinker. Okay, he had a lot of ideas. Okay. Thomas Jefferson was an inventor. Is that right? Was that where he was first? Was he kind of the tinkerer?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have all these guys, and we're like, these people came up with the Constitution, and that's supposedly the bedrock of our patriotism, our philosophy as a nation, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal, with unalienable rights. All these things. The language makes a lot of sense, and I'd like to consider myself somewhat of a constitutionalist. Like I believe in that, the philosophy of that parchment, as a patriot. I think patriotism, you have to believe in that. The thing is, they were speaking for white slave-owning men. Like they wrote it and they're like, oh, all men are created equal. But they meant white slave-owning men. They didn't mean...
So hold on. Do we know they meant that, or is that supposition? I mean, is that...
Well, they had slaves and they helped slaughter the Native Americans to take control of the land.
Okay, and here's the thing. I don't know if that's just implied. Yeah. One of the great things about our Constitution is, they had the foresight to realize that, that it had to be, that over time it was going to need to be amended. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why we call it a living document.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
No, I think we're on the same page. I agree. That was a living document. That's what we're like. We've had two revolutions so far. I really think we're approaching, if not in the infancy, of our third American Revolution. Like the first one was against the British when we wanted to take control of the colonies, created what we were. The second was the Civil War. I look at that as the second American Revolutionary War. Honestly, it was amongst ourselves to give freedom to the slaves at the time. And now I feel like we're in the infancy of a second Civil War, a third American Revolution, where oppressed people are saying, fuck you, we're not being heard. We demand to have our rights met. The promise of the Constitution, the promise of what it means to be an American. I think that's why I say as patriotic as it gets is to have this war. And the people that don't want to see any change because they've either benefited from the system as it is, or they're, in my opinion, brainwashed by how we've been indoctrinated. And I'm talking about an entire generation. I think the baby boomers, to a large degree, think everything is fine because they hoarded a lot of this wealth through the system as it was, which is totally ironic when you think about, these are post hippies and stuff. Like, I think they had this flower child time. They didn't end up seeing things turn out how maybe they imagined when they were in their youth, and then they just bought in. They bought into the system, and now I feel like it's fully being challenged. And the irony is, it seems like these same people who were the hippies are pushing back against the youth that are saying, no, we need to make these changes to actualize what we're talking about for everybody, for more people.
Yeah. So, and here's my thing. Yeah, it's I'm not trying to to negate the struggle of any marginalized community. All right, like I think as a whole we've got a lot of mechanisms in place, and we get it wrong. Like there is nothing that's not without room for improvement. Like nothing. All that to say, I don't. Yeah. I guess I just gotta leave it at no one's got it figured out quite yet what the next step is. We've always got to be cognizant. It's like we got to make sure that we're not we just want to make sure that we're not A, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and B, making sure that by securing other people's rights, we're not somehow infringing on someone else's. And I don't know how that could come to be, etc. But so look at things like affirmative action. We felt that that minorities were being passed over for opportune jobs, and we had a pendulum at one point that was swinging very far against them. And now we've done what we can to swing it right, to make sure that doesn't happen, and that's a good thing, and all that, and there of course there was, someone had something negative to say about it, but the reality is, we've always got to do our part to make sure that that those liberties for everybody are safeguarded. Like
let me interject real quick. I think what you're trying to say is you want to make sure that opportunity is being based off merit, and it's not at the expense of. When we had affirmative action, minorities were put to the front of the line because it hadn't been that way for so many generations. That hey, we need to have these voices in the room, in positions of leadership, in the discussion, telling their own stories, etc. And we've done that. And you'd like to see us get to a post-racial society where it's not based off this or that as much as it's based off of merit.
So hold on. So here's the thing. I think we still have work to do in that area. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're at the point where we're like, okay, everybody's equal now, and now it's a level playing field. Because it's not. Look, we've got there are deep socioeconomic ruts that need to be overcome. We've got an entire prison industrial complex that is just eviscerating generations of minorities and their ability to prosper. So we're not there yet. But that's where we're at.
Okay, so let's go. Let's move on from the Constitution to the national anthem, and this was at the root of what Colin Kaepernick, when he was making his protest, he was doing it during the national anthem, and there was some symbolism to that, not just the root of the national anthem itself, but in the message. So the national anthem, will say, "Can you see by the stars' early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last evening? the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, all that. It's about war. It's a war song. Literally, that's a war song. It's like
I believe it was actually born in a tavern as a drinking song, and maybe that might have just been the tune. But I digress.
Okay, but when we're talking about the rockets' red glare and the bombs bursting in air, I think the song is about the American Revolution. Is that fair to say?
I can't comment on that, but let's be real. No one has ever conquered any land by being nice. So look, war and conflict is part of our biology.
Okay.
Like, we're here today because our ancestors were the superior hunter-gatherer, i.e., the more efficient killer. So let's let us not deny our primitive selves.
Well, that's fine, and I don't need to sugarcoat anything or to be naive or flippant about who we are. In fact, I think that's a big part of the conversation, is us fully acknowledging who we are, who we've been, what we are as a collective, pieces in the country, because I think we have too much separation right now and tribalism, where these conversations aren't being had amongst the groups to really kind of bring about this larger perspective about what it means to be an American. But I think with him protesting initially during the national anthem, his message was everyone standing up, the sense of nationalism that we were talking about earlier, and just a full-throated adherence to whatever's happening in our country was at odds with the Black experience in the country, and those things at the hands of white supremacy.
Okay, so I can't speak to the Black experience because I don't know if you noticed, so I'm not going to, I can't say what, I can't tell you how a Black man is living, because I'm simply not one. I don't, I know, that being said, people standing for the for the national anthem, that's not nationalism, that's patriotism. And that's, but here's the thing, Colin Kaepernick kneeling in its own way is also patriotism, because that's look, that is one of the things that our country is founded on. I mean, I love the rebels. I love the rabble rousers, the guys that are like, and here's the thing, he brought, whether it was the right way to do it or not, he got people talking about a subject that was uncomfortable, that's uncomfortable for people, say like me, I'm not, if, racism doesn't really play a factor in my life because I'm not oppressed. So I've got to be more mindful of things that maybe I wasn't, thinking of, I've got to, so, him kneeling is a good thing. Look, as a combat veteran, as an American, hey, of course it's going to ruffle my feathers a little bit. At first sight, I'm gonna be like, well, what's this guy's fucking problem? But at the end of the day, hey, you find out the message, you get past your initial visceral reaction, and you know what? Cool. Hey, you got a platform, you're using it for something good. More power to you.
And I think you touched on it briefly in there when you said it's the difference between nationalism and patriotism. When Colin Kaepernick first wanted to protest, he just sat through the Pledge of Allegiance. And we don't even talk about guys like Marshawn Lynch that just sit for the sake of, Marshawn Lynch is just like, fuck this, fuck America, pretty much. And he's sitting. That's different. So Colin sat initially, and a former soldier said to him, hey, I take offense to you sitting right now because of my sacrifice that I've made and what my fellow soldiers have sacrificed. Could you please take a knee to at least show respect for what we did? And he heard that, and he made that change.
Yeah.
That's patriotic, okay? Nationalism is saying, you do this. You stand up, you put your hand on your heart, you take off your hat, This is what it is. It's more robotic, and I think it gets away from the root of what patriotism is and that message of our rights, what makes us uniquely American, and to try to speak to our experience, to try to fix things. And I think that's an important distinction that needs to be understood from both sides, the difference between being a nationalist and being a patriot. Because I can believe completely differently than you, but if we both love our country and we can both agree in the Constitution as a bedrock and our rights and what make us uniquely American, beyond the Americana, but what makes us the freedoms we have, if we both can start there, even if you believe totally one way and I believe another, then I think we can start to find common ground. And that's where I think, had we given Kaepernick the respect, because now look, NFL can even start up, I may fucking take a knee myself, and I think you're going to see a lot more other people taking knees during the national anthem here on out until these changes are made. It's an act of civil disobedience while still acknowledging the flag. Oh, you're doing the national anthem? Okay, I'm going to take a knee. This is not out of disrespect. It's saying I'm going to physically change my activity out of acknowledging what's happening right now and this country that I'm a part of, but in a way that's also symbolizing my philosophy that we're in distress.
Yeah, and hey, I look at it like this. I think there's, hey, however you want to get your message across, your business. I mean, yeah, look, yeah, obviously when it comes to things like burning the flag, stepping on it, etc. I'm gonna have a visceral reaction to it. But at the end of the day, man, it's my life's not gonna change much. But, yeah.
Don't equate burning the flag, stepping on it, running it over, shitting on it, pissing on it to taking a knee. That's not anywhere the same. It's not.
What I'm saying, Eric, is look, these I can appreciate symbolic gestures, and look, the reality is, I like, hey, taking a knee. Look, I think it's a great form of protest. I think it's the least. We'll say, oh God, it's the least disruptive. It's like, so yeah, why not? Why not? That being said, I also got to, you also got to take it in context. Colin Kaepernick, had he had an opportunity to make his statement. He made his statement. He got the whole world talking about it. Mission accomplished. I think the next step. I don't think the next step forward is, hey, this is still an issue. It's what are we doing about the issue?
Fair. So let's bring it to from the national anthem to the actual Pledge of Allegiance. Did you grow up doing the Pledge of Allegiance in school?
I sure did.
Okay, so school starts over the loudspeaker. Whoever is reading whatever the day's news is says, and now the Pledge of Allegiance, and they would play the music sometime right off the speaker, and all of us would stand up. We'd put our hands on our hearts. I pledge allegiance. You have a flag in our classroom. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just cut that down into pieces. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. That's patriotic. It can be skewed to be nationalistic. It just depends how you want to view it. It is actually nationalistic. I pledge allegiance to this flag because it's not questioning anything. Patriotism is saying I'm going to question if we're adhering to the value of what we believe America is to be. Nationalistic says I pledge allegiance to this flag, of the United States. Period. There's nothing. That's a sentence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. So it's like whatever this republic is, I pledge allegiance to this. One nation, which means one nation is hard because we're not. We're honestly not. as a political entity, as a force in the world, we are a force of power. Okay, the Fed is one nation, our federal government. Under God means almost divine favor, or it could be viewed as being it could be viewed by some as a Christian nation under God. Those people who think this is what God is, just Christianity, one nation under God. Or it could mean we are being judged by God. That seems almost a little more interpretive, but it can be spun by the person who's telling you to tell what one nation under God means. Indivisible, that's bullshit. That's a poison pill right in there. That's fucking bullshit. We're divided as fuck. We've always been divided to one extent or another, but it's in there. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's bullshit too. Okay, everybody has not been getting liberty and justice, and definitely not everybody. So that whole ending has been bullshit forever. I mean, can you disagree with any of that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's I think we all do our best, man. I think yeah, like yeah, you're talking about you're making a lot of broad sweeping statements. Oh, it's bullshit. You know what? Yeah, look, I think we don't get it right all the time, but by and large, me, the majority of people I knew, yeah, some of us grew up in poverty, but we all grew up relatively free. Yeah, indivisible. Okay, yeah, I can see. Yeah, we got some stuff we're working out. Liberty and justice for all. Okay, so here's the thing: we are all living under the same laws. Like that's. And yeah, there has been some miscarriages of justice, but the reality is they are miscarriages of justice. They're not. It's not like we have a whites only law and a blacks only law. It's not like we have a Christian law and Judeo law. I mean,
but like, there is injustice. There's injustice built into the system, and a lot of it we'll get into right now when we start delving into the untold history of the United States, because there is. I mean, there are two Americas, and then it fragments from there, and I mean, let's just start with our real forefathers, okay? The untold story of who some of these people are, okay? I learned recently stuff like Benjamin Franklin might have been a serial killer. There was
I'm sorry. Hey, you're getting pretty garbled. I didn't hear anything you just said.
Benjamin Franklin was a serial killer. There was a boneyard under his property.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Jefferson was potentially raping his slaves. He had bastard children with different slaves. I mean, there's a whole thing. George Washington was a war general. I mean, we don't know. He was respected. He helped us defeat the British and gain our rule. But there's a lot of stuff we don't know about George Washington before. So there's layers to these people that we've put on a pedestal as ideological, the forefathers of the nation, these people who built the country, that we just don't fully understand about their psyches, who they were. We don't really know who they were. We only know the history that's been told by the conquerors. You know, history is written by the victor. Know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
So what we don't really talk about is America's original sin, which is when they came here, and I don't even think these aren't the forefathers. These are the pilgrims. Okay, Columbus was Italian, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So we got Italians coming here. He discovered America. At some point, the pilgrims come here. Are pilgrims, were they British discarded religious fanatics in kind of a same ilk as like, okay, Australia was like Britain's prison colony. They sent all the prisoners down to Australia. Did Britain send their fucking religious fanatics here to get rid of them?
No fucking clue.
Exactly. I don't know either. All we know is we were a nation comprised of white Anglo-Saxon Protestants that came here initially to create a colony of some semblance of a Christian religion. And that's what we were built on in this American colony. But we don't really even know, like, why did they come here? I mean, we're still under British rule. Mm-hmm. We were sending our taxes back to the crown. I think we're just a faction of colonialism, British colonialism. We come here, we decimated the Native American population. Now, the thing that blows my mind is Columbus thought he had discovered India, okay, when he got here. And he wasn't even the first person to come to North America. That was the Vikings. Okay? We don't talk about those Nordic discoveries. We just say Columbus discovered America. And then he's like, oh, look at these Indians. And it's because he thought he was in India, mm-hmm. You know, because the British and all that had already found India, Indian Company or whatever they call it. Comes here, and we still call them Indians. In the books, they were calling them Indians, the Cleveland Indians, everything. And all of that is purely because of the ignorance of the people who got here who thought they were in India. Instead of calling them native or native, even natives. But we showed up and we decimated them. Now, that's the history of violence that's really at the basis of where we started as a country. Mm-hmm. And we don't really get into that. We don't talk about the fact we committed a genocide. You know?
I mean, so let's break it down. I mean, I think we've got look, 4 people ago, we started slaves in America. I mean, that's we can look at the bedrock of how we all got here, but the reality is we've got a whole lot of immigrants over the past couple hundred years. So yeah, I get what you're saying. But I mean, we've got much more egregious recent transgressions, and we're working through those, and I think it's kind of more, I think that needs a little more. I say that again.
It's more pressing and pertinent to the time right now to focus on where we are. Is what you're saying, and you're right, but without understanding the context of how we got here, we're not able to look at the full picture, and that's why I'm going all the way back to when we got here. The genocide was based out of like a religious group thing, and I don't know who the comedian was. I want to say it was curly hair, kind of a pitchy voice. Michelle Wolf had talked about with the whole, the Karen thing that they talk about now with these white women talking about how they are in the whole scheme of things too, which is there. Like I said, the iceberg is there, and sexism is absolutely a part of what we need to discuss. It's just like right now, the tip of the iceberg has been Black lives. Black Lives Matter is the first conversation. We're going to get to sexism. All that stuff is coming. That's all part of the conversation of what this third revolution is about, is bringing all this to the surface. We're in group therapy as a nation right now. But Michelle Wolf had talked about how the idea of slaughtering the Native Americans with smallpox blankets, she's like, that's an innately female way to go about killing. Like, she's like, if these men showed up and they're like, okay, here are these people, and we're going to take this land, well, let's go fucking destroy them all, That's kind of the masculine way to fight and kill. But at some point, one of the women was like, no, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give them blankets. And they're going to think we're their friends. And that's going to kill them all. Like, that's kind of a sneaky, underhanded, feminine way to go about part of this genocide. So just throwing it in there, just like, this is who we are initially as a people. Them showing up with their slaves to do the work. There's already that separation there, that racist separation, that mental dissonance. This is the basis of who we are. And still, we're talking about Christians. Came here, one nation under God, they meant Christian people. Everything else is being othered. Where else? So they come, they talk about their conservative Christian values, which is already, there's the dissonance right there when you're disregarding the complete sovereignty of this native population, because you're showing up and you're saying, hey, we have, it's our manifest destiny. We're here. This is happening. So God is obviously in our favor to take this land and to decimate you in the state of ownership of this land, this property, these people, to hoard the wealth for the crown at the time, giving it back to the crown and getting more money and power, with the ultimate philosophy behind it being white supremacy. That's what that whole diatribe was about. Okay. And when you're saying, well, how do we get there? Because all of those things that I just said is the basis of white supremacy as a philosophy, that manifest destiny, the right to do this, the right to come take over the world and other people's land and property and ownership, is because God wants us to have it.
So, if I may,
of course.
I don't know if that's necessarily a white supremacy thing. That seems more like just socioeconomic supremacy. And what I mean by that is, look, they're coming. You've got these pilgrims. They're coming from a place where they have a certain type of infrastructure and safeguards, and they come to a new place and they institute their infrastructure, their safeguards, etc. And they happen to be Caucasian, I believe. I've never actually met a pilgrim, but
the pilgrims came from Britain.
Yeah. So again, just for I can't. I don't know where the slave trade was at the time, etc. But yeah, as far as my understanding, pilgrims were Caucasian. But I don't. It's. I don't know if it was necessarily because they were white, or it's because the natives were, in comparison, savages. And by savages, I mean like they were just maybe not quite as technologically or structurally as advanced as the motherland of, say, the Pilgrims, where they're like, hey, this is how you make brick and mortar, this is how you harvest grain, this is whatever.
But what's more savage, the people coming to your country and murdering you, or the people who are already living there fighting to protect their homes? Which is more savage?
Yeah. Look, obviously, it's what happened with the Native Americans was a tragedy. And here's the thing: that's a tragedy that's managed to have been doubled down on over generations.
It wasn't tragic. A tragic makes it seem like it was accidental. Tragic is a building imploding because it was structurally unsound. Going to someone's country and taking it over for colonialistic reasons and killing the people who live there to take their land is genocide. There are names for these things, and I think we just have to use them. You don't need to have white guilt about a genocide committed that you had nothing to do with directly. You don't need to have white guilt for that, but you do need to acknowledge it. You need to be able to say, this is a function of white supremacy as it existed. And I think that'll be healing for the nation to understand that, like, people, white people, minorities, can have that conversation and say, hey, this was wrong. Like, just acknowledging it was wrong.
Okay. So then what?
Then we tried to build. We tried to make the changes. Like, we acknowledged that we profited off of systemic inequality. White people have profited. They built this foundation in the country, you know, and even understanding like where the country had kind of built off of this. It didn't start with America. It started with the dissection of Africa, and that was Spanish, British, French. It might have been like some Norwegian countries. It might have been just several parts of Europe descended on the world. They put out their tendrils and they took their around the world. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Say tendrils?
Yeah. Yeah. They Africa was the most mineral and metal rich country. And I think a lot of that has to do with when the Earth came to be physically. I feel like it was kind of the heart of Pangea. It's the biggest continent on the planet still, you know? And I think it was mineral rich, gold, silver, diamonds, all sorts of material wealth. And Africa ended up being, the borders right now in Africa, as it is currently set up, is not was not established by the African people themselves. It was established by the conquerors to separate those countries by mineral wealth. Like, and I learned that from someone who was like a political figure from Ghana who came and talked at the college and explained that to us. He's like, these are not their borders. There are rival factions and tribes and people still that have to share borders, which leads to a lot of infighting within nations because they didn't get to set it up. Similar to like when the USSR broke up into all these different countries over there, the Russian, Eastern European countries, they created their borders. That's never been done in Africa still. So a lot of them are taking all these different things, Spanish, British, French, whoever, still white supremacy. They're all European countries. People, slaves, the slave trade, all of it was brought about. And America is just sort of like a continuation of it all. New York, you know, New Hampshire. You know, all these places, it was a continuation of that same philosophy. And I don't think many Americans ever think about this stuff because of our own, you know.
So I mean, and we also we gotta be practical in our own lives in the sense of, hey, I can dwell on the on things that happened, the better part of hundreds of years ago, but in the meantime, I've still got to pay my mortgage, get my kids to school, and blah blah blah. So yeah, don't get me wrong. These things are these are important foundational issues that should be taught in school, etc. But yeah, like I think we've got some pretty pressing things that need to be addressed right now. And yeah, obviously there is a blueprint for systemic racism that does extend a little further than maybe we'd be looking at on the forend. But I think if you drive your car only looking in your rearview mirror, you're just not going to get where you need to get to in the most expeditious manner.
I agree. And I think more than anything, what this point in time is about is a battle for equality. Is these minorities, starting with Black people, are saying, hey, these are this is the history we came from. We don't even know our black people were saying we don't know our personal history because we were taken as slaves. Where you or I could probably go on one of these like 23andMe type sites and do a swab and then find out our entire genealogy as far back as there are history of. Black people had, look, the Sphinx has its nose busted off in Egypt. Why? Because it probably had a broad black nose, honestly. And whoever came and took over said, nope, this is a symbolic gesture of busting a nose off of the Sphinx. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see that symbol of power. Egypt was a black-run kingdom. One of the kingdom of Egypt was black. This is Africa, man. It's 120 degrees. You don't think these are black people?
I couldn't speak to that.
It's Africa. It is Africa. They're African. It's hot as shit. You can't be pale. You'll burn to a crisp. You need melanin. This is the untold history of the world and the African people, because we've been fed this whole view of who played Cleopatra? What's her name? Turner? What was that lady's name? Elizabeth Taylor. Like, this is all.
So let's look at that region. So you have Egypt on the northern coast of it. You've got Israel surrounded by Syria, Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon. That ultimately leads into the into Southwest Asia. So actually, I don't think it's so far fetched when literally we're talking a good day's walk from from the Middle East to Africa.
That's fair, and that's a fair point, because like I was saying, Africa is a continent. Like, I don't think people understand. I think the United States, Europe, Australia, and maybe South America, the continents, all these continents can fit in the continent of Africa. It's that big. It's huge. Okay? So when you're saying, hey, this northern portion, you got the Middle East, you have Eurasia to its east, you're making a good point. I'm just talking about heat. It's fucking hot in Egypt, right? You need melanin.
It's also hot in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Okay. So, but these are people of melanin. These aren't Europeans. These are people. So you're saying, when I'm saying they busted off the nose off the Sphinx, you're saying there's no way to even tell that it had a broad nose, like,
Well, I think the absence of evidence is never going to be is never going to have evidentiary value in this one case. Like, hey, we don't know what the nose was, and that, like, it could have been a broad nose indicative of more African features, or not, and that's that's kind of where we are. I think to go down that rabbit hole is just an inopportune waste of time.
Okay, I also think it speaks to, again, a sense of white privilege. It's saying, hey, we don't have the evidence, so why question it? Let's move on.
Well, again, and that's not no, that's not so much what I'm saying. I'm saying if you look at people in that region, not quite black, not quite Norwegian. And honestly, I mean, as if you were going to draw, say, a melanin line, going from the north east corner of Africa, and expand and just kind of go east from there. I mean, you get your Middle Easterners, then your Indians, your Pakistanis, then your West Asian, your Afghanis, and then bam, you're in you have we'll call it the Mongol range, and then we're in China. So I mean, there's a pretty linear millennial transition, coming from right there. So, and look, this isn't the hill I'm going to die on. It's simply, well, I can actually see it just having a more, say, Middle Eastern or Arabic nose. But again, I don't fucking know.
Okay. All right. So fair. So let's bring it to present day.
Okay.
When we start talking about what our government is,
Okay.
I honestly think we're a war machine. You know, I really think that's what it's still been about, and that's why I wanted to start going back into history of imperialism and colonialism first, is to understand what we are now, and what we're being marketed, and what the flag is, and before the football games and all these things when we have the flyovers and everything, understanding. I think we've consistently tried to put ourselves and interject ourselves into wars or into rebellions and into conflicts with the outward, full-throated propaganda of spreading patriotism across the world. You know, I think that's kind of the way we presented it. And like, oh, we're going to liberate these people. We're going to go out here. Oh, there's a rebellion going on wherever country, enter country here. We're going to go ahead and interject. And I feel like the major players that have been a part of this war machine game of risk have been us, China, the former USSR. Are those the big ones? I think those are the biggies.
I mean, that sounds like pretty much everybody on the UN. So yeah, sounds about right.
Well, I'm just saying those three are the superpowers in the world even now, right? I mean, Russia, it's not the USSR anymore, but us, China, and the former USSR. Let's say Russia now, and then we have our allegiances. You know, who we've all aligned ourselves with in this game of risk in the world.
Okay.
So we don't talk about that. Like we don't talk about the CIA's kind of agenda. And I think this is a big part of what we have going on underneath the surface. You know, you have missions being sent up during the Reagan administration. They're funneling weapons to guerrilla fighters in different South American countries, or we're trying to strategically distance ourselves from Cuba, but we want to, you know, be in Puerto Rico, or we're making Alaska a territory. This is part of us. Guam, like all these things. This is military-minded operations that the average citizen doesn't need to bother themselves with. But I feel like this is truly what our federal government has been concerned with, is establishing power, maintaining power, and creating a defensive stance against the other superpowers so we don't lose our footing in the world.
Just to be clear, you're asking if the U.S. has done things in its own strategic interest, on the basis of national defense. Yeah, probably.
I'm not even questioning whether we did it because we have to. I'm more bringing about the question as to if we are bad guys. Because we've been told we're good guys, and it might be kind of neutral, but are we bad guys?
So I mean, yeah, I sure don't want to think so. Look, as a soldier, it's I believe that look, I think our army does things for for a just and right reasons, and I know that the guys that I deployed with. And bear in mind, these are 18 to 25-year-old males of all across the world, that we put in harm's way. I could depend on every one of those guys without fail, without exception, to do the right thing for the right reason when people weren't looking. And that's and maybe we were just all lucky and we had these relatively good dudes just happened to find ourselves in the same company. Or by and large, man, like the reason the U.S. military is a good thing is because Americans, I believe, are inherently good. Yeah, we got some issues, but yeah, you know, my personal feelings aside about Iraq and the whole everything in the Middle East. I mean, the reality is it's not the why is secondary to the guys next to me, and
Okay.
you know,
But so even there, a lot of what you're saying is you have a belief that we're inherently good. I don't believe we're inherently good, and I don't want to believe we're inherently evil. I think it's all been gray. So even we were talking about earlier, Cheney, setting up Halliburton facilities in the Middle East. Like, fuck that dude, that's evil. That motherfucker is corrupt as shit. I mean, Cheney, to me, he was running the show behind the scenes. He was, puppeting Bush like a marionette. No, not like a marionette, like a damn lap puppet with his hand fully up his ass. So there are people in the system that are evil. That's not everyone. There are people in the system that are good. Now, it's hard when you get to a certain level of power, I think, to be good. You have to be gray, shades of gray. You have to kill innocent people sometimes for the sake of whatever the mission is. That's just how it goes. And I appreciate your perspective as a soldier and someone who's been on these front lines because it matters. Your experience and the experience of the person that's why I said the government, just setting up these missions, it's two totally different things. One is strategic and one is survival. One is goal. They're both goal oriented, but one has potentially nefarious purpose and the other one is following orders. So it's hard when you're saying, hey, you believe it's all inherently good. I think that's a coping mechanism. I think it's easier to go in something and say, hey, wait.
Okay, so here's the thing. Let's look at it like this. With my team, my deployment, my guys were we were out there every day doing, we were either hunting down bad guys. Then when I say hunting down bad guys, I mean the guys that had managed to overrun a Royal MP station and execute the members, all found therein. While doing a lot of civil affairs work, making sure that people knew that, hey, here's some food. We started simulating the local economy, and in addition to that, we were providing security for the town to make sure that at the time I think it was Jace Almaty or whoever was being kept at bay. So yeah, these are things that are inherently good. The things that keep what would make us inherently bad is you take a bunch of 18 to 24-year-old guys with with M4s and 50 cals, set them loose in the town, and we have a bunch of guys out there just gang raping and pillaging. So there's a clear fucking difference.
Okay, so let's talk about mercenaries then. Blackwater.
Okay.
What do you know about Blackwater?
Great. Blackwater does what a lot of our government should be doing, and by that, I mean Blackwater can do at a fraction of the cost of what our military does in a lot of ways. In fact, if you talk to Eric Prince or watch some of his interviews, Blackwater fills a lot of gaps that would otherwise be just too much of a strain on the military or too mission specific for who and what's available. Mercenary work is not new. I think at one point I was listening to Eric Prince, the founder of Blackwater. It was saying that you know there was a task that was given to a Navy admiral to basically transport some cargo and some kind of logistical operation. The admiral, gave his thing, and then they compared it to Eric Prince's, who had his own kind of infrastructure, and his cost was like 1/50th of it. Because the reality is, if you're in the military, you're not concerned about what things actually cost. Um, not at certain levels. So look, private military contractors exist for a reason, and that reason is they work.
Okay, but is it outside of the purview of the public's view of what's happening? I mean, are these secret missions? Is that why they're hiring these guys?
No, the majority of the guys are usually work that are say work for Blackwater or Academy, whatever they're calling themselves now. Those guys are usually on, are working contracts for the State Department, where they're guarding they're providing personal security details for key personnel, or they're doing logistical support, or they're securing routes. I've got a buddy who's, constantly, is having to, escort, people in the oil and gas industry, or people in other various, engineers, things like that, where they've got to go out to certain sites, and they just got to make sure that these guys are protected. So it'll be little things like, doing sending an advanced team and make sure everything's in place, so they have that security, making sure there's a QRF, which is quick reaction force, so that those guys have some backup. I mean, it's not like Blackwater's hiring a bunch of Jason Bournes to go in there and take out other heads of state or whatever. And here's the thing: I can't speak to authority that they're not doing that, but that's to my knowledge, I just don't know about it. I think that's just some made up nonsense, if for no other reason other than just for financial liability.
Now, are these soldiers of fortune though? Would these be considered soldiers of fortune? Like, are they out there just doing it for the money? It's their job to go be soldiers, right?
Okay, so let's be real. People do any job for the reason people do any job is for money. Like that is our currency. So let's look. I became like I love being a soldier, but I wasn't doing it for free. And hey, if I can do the something close to the exact same job and make 3 times as much, there's nothing wrong with that.
But the question is who's deciding if it's not the U.S. government who's deciding these missions, or that's what I said. Are these secret missions?
So here's the deal. A lot of those, at least to my knowledge, Blackwater for sure, their standards, their rules of engagement far exceed anything the UN or the War Council or the Geneva Convention. Like they take it pretty seriously. Now, again, there might be a level of official deviance that occurs in hold on one sec. In any corporation, but it's those guys take that stuff pretty seriously.
But that's okay. So I think what I'm kind of getting to is back to the whole idea of our government and our federal system as a war machine. Part of what we are is a war machine. And I think by sending out beyond our own military and then creating segments of the population that are civilians that join you wouldn't even call it an organized militia, would you? They're mercenaries. They're mercs. Okay, they're joining.
I'm sorry, you lost me. Wait, are you talking about like say like Blackwater?
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the thing: they're not hiring civilians. The reason they're a private military contractor because generally they recruit people that have skills that you can only learn in the military. Yeah, they're not recruited. Well, go on. I'm sorry.
Okay, no. That's an important distinction. Okay, that's important to know because my concern, and I think this is something that's fair to say, is when you have been turned into a clockwork. You know, you have been conditioned now. You have been made into a soldier. Okay.
Okay.
Especially if you've seen action. When you come back to America and you're asked to say, okay, go back into society and figure it out. There are only a few organizations that can really fit your skill set and who you become. And I think this goes into partly who the police are now,
Mm-hmm.
and the militarization of a lot of these forces, but not just the police. Okay, the police are an entity. The sheriff's department is an entity. Corrections officers in prisons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess those are some of the biggies. I'm just saying, if you come back and you're a soldier, and this is how you've been wired. It's in your DNA. There's a certain level of PTSD that is just going to deal with you because you've been in these high stress situations. Your body is physiologically changed forever. You can cope with it. I mean, am I full of shit?
So I'm gonna look at it like this, man. Yeah, I can't say who has PTSD, who doesn't. So let's look at what the military does and what it prepares you for. Okay. One, you go you go in, you get physically fit, you learn how to show up on time at the right place in the right uniform. You learn discipline. You learn punctuality. You learn how to that every task has a that there's a task, a condition, and a standard. You learn the basics of honestly what it takes to be a good adult. These are inherently good things. The U.S. Army has about 100 jobs. Only there's then there's infantry. Okay, so we've got one job that's frontline soldier, and there's about 98 others that are everything from clerk typist to food specialist to truck driver. I mean, so no, not all soldiers have the same experience, and not all soldiers are created equal in the sense of some jobs are more physically demanding than others. So to say the military does this or does that, look, here's at the base level, you learn right place, right time, right uniform, and you're in better shape, ideally, coming out than when you go in. These are all good things, and furthermore, it gives you the opportunity to provide a better life for yourself by getting paid to go to college. Yeah, getting your college paid for. These are all benefits of that I personally received from the Army. So yeah, not everybody that that enlists is coming back some with some 1,000-yard stare and a chip on their shoulder. I mean, look, the Army was despite everything, the Army was really good for me, and really good to me. And yeah, it's the Army's kind of like a bad marriage though, in the sense where you're kind of you're locked in there. Not everything's perfect, but could always be worse. These are and so all that to say, I mean, the military is going to be what you're going to make of it. It's and I'll digress from there.
Okay, well, let's bring that conversation into the police force directly. As a former officer, were a lot of your coworkers former military veterans?
I would say maybe 15%, because you got to remember the military is on average I think less than 1% of the population serves. That's of the nation, and of that 1% are frontline soldiers, i.e., infantry. Also, shout out to the combat medics, combat scouts, all those guys that are in heavy support MOSs that that are out there on the front lines too. No disrespect to those guys at all. Just I'm a grunt. I speak and I speak for for my experience. Also to the forward observers, those guys too, to a lesser degree, the Cav Scouts and the engineers. Anyway, um, all that to say, um, like I think it's and honestly, I think there's a good amount of guys that were cops and maybe just didn't have the maybe the physical attributes to be a good soldier. I don't know, or just or maybe they had life circumstances that prevented them. I don't know, but by and large, it's slightly higher. There's a slightly higher percentage of veterans in the police force, based on my experience, than there are in the general populace.
Okay, so with that said, 15% was your estimate. The militarization. I'm sorry.
Give or take.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Estimate. We're spitballing here. We're having a conversation. So with that said, the militarization of the police force that's happened in this country, which has to do with America has built all these assault weapons, and I know that's going to be a fucking trigger word right there to even throw that out there. But like these heavy duty military grade.
I was going to say, I think I think all weapons are meant to I like we don't have a hug rifle out there.
Okay, so I'm talking about spray and pray. I'm talking about tanks to knock down someone's front door to get into a house. I'm talking about using military weaponry after wartime scenarios and selling it directly to these police forces, making weaponizing our police in a sense where they're essentially they're at-home soldiers. You're seeing a lot of these people that weren't able to make it into the actual military now have almost the same manpower within our communities.
So I'm gonna you were kind of broad on that. So let's start with a couple things. By and large, I think most departments are going to have even their patrol officers are going to be armed with your traditional sidearm, which is going to be a Glock, probably a Remington 870 shotgun, and maybe an AR, which is basically a civilian variant, which is a semi-automatic gas operated rifle. Okay, generally, most law enforcement agencies are actually they're getting the civilian versions of these M4s that are available to members of the public, like you. Well, not you, because you're in California. But so by and large, you're not seeing a lot of full autos or fully automatic M4s in the hands of police, and it's not because they're not capable, and it's not because they're not trained. It's really just budgetary and tax purposes. I think they're just a little more expensive. Having a gunsmith that knows how to work on those, or an armorer, it's just one extra layer of bureaucracy, and like the police department's pretty fed up with it. That being said, so your next question was, I think you were referring to like the use of AMRAPs. It's mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles. They kind of look like tanks, and you're seeing a lot of SWAT teams use them. They have a purpose, and it's to keep it's to keep officers safe, because these are protected vehicles that allow them to get close to when you're serving a high risk warrant, and keeps the officers safe, and they're free. A lot of these were donated to those police departments as part of the federal surplus program. And they're not. It's not like people are getting pulled over by MRAPs and Humvees. They're very mission specific pieces of gear that otherwise would be serving no purpose. And ultimately, look, being a cop is inherently dangerous. Being on SWAT is inherently more dangerous. Like, these are, so yeah, I want those guys to have the best gear and the means to protect themselves to accomplish their mission. Yes, sometimes things go wrong, but it is it is the cost of having these safeguards, i.e., the police.
Okay, and honestly, and I think all this is fair. Like, as long as it's the last line of defense, where we have to get into where we're at with this conversation of police reform, which we're still building up to all of that. All these things make sense, and I think the public have to understand certain safeguards need to be there. Okay, we need a police force as a last means of defense to keep us safe. We just have to take a lot of the burden off of officers' shoulders, so it is a last line of defense, and people aren't getting killed if unnecessarily if it doesn't need to escalate to the situation where the police finally need to be involved.
So, and also before I get to that, you had mentioned the militarization of the police. Were you talking specifically about their weapons, or was there also? Because I've also heard some things about, hey, the police should have different uniforms or no uniforms, things like that. And I just want to make sure we had exhausted that completely.
Oh, you tell me. Go on. I just want to know too. I want to make sure you touch upon. Do you think everybody that wears the badge is qualified to wield the power that they're being given?
Of course, fucking not. But here's the thing. We have safeguards on the recruiting side and on the and on the professional standards side. But the reality is, let's look at what the job is. All right, the majority of the qualifications for it are a high school diploma, sometimes the ability to pass a physical abilities test, and a background investigation that indicates you're free of moral defects. That being said, nobody and a psychological examination. But that being said, nobody gets that right 100% of the time either, and there's no telling how the job is going to change you or how other life circumstances are going to change you. You might have a bad divorce, develop a drinking habit, and you're not the same cop that you were, when you started 10 years ago. And these are all, you got to remember that cops are human beings. And as many different types of people there are as many different types of cops. By and large, the majority of the guys are out there doing the job right, and we never hear about them. Things have gone wrong, and there's a system of accountability for it. And it's not perfect. It's just the best that we've got right now, and it's always improving. Just as our tactics and our techniques improve over time and match the current environment, so does the recruiting efforts. But the reality is, the public expects a whole lot for not very much. And what I mean by that is, I want you to think about what you need your officer to be, right? And go ahead and list, and I want you to list some attributes of what you think an officer needs to have.
Well, it's almost easier for me to say what I need them not to have.
And we can get there, but I think it's important to see the reasonable expectations of a tax-paying public of their law enforcement officers.
I would need them to be able to de-escalate a situation. I would need them to have some sort of training as a cadet for both anger management, de-escalation, and stress, or some sort of coping mechanism. So psychological. I need them to be able to process intense psychological stress.
Okay. So let's make sure I got that. So the ability to analyze intense emotional distress and act accordingly, right?
Anger management, when someone is going to act, wrong, threatened, and de-escalation.
Okay, cool. All right, what else?
That's what I said. I wanted to start there because it's easier for me to say this is what we need to make sure they don't have. Because when you're talking about the psychological test, I think a lot of the problems we're seeing is officers exhibiting behavior, which I think is classified under the dark tetrad. And I don't know if you wanted to bring it there yet, because that's a whole other discussion point.
So let me and I'm happy to go there, by the way. So but before I get there, so we've got to make sure that they're able to, to be really, really able to handle just about anything that comes up with them psychologically, and make sure that they're saying the right thing at the right time, de-escalating a situation.
Oh no, not the right thing. It's like I have realistic expectations. I mean, things would be a lot better if we had non-lethal weaponry as a first response. I keep going back in my head as soon as these killings kept coming up. I said, why don't officers have a long-range, non-toxic, quick hardening foam where if you're acting out of control, I'm going to spray your ass down. This thing is going to quickly harden upon impact all upon you, and you are going to be immobilized until we remove it.
So the majority of interactions between law enforcement and the public happen in what we call a reactionary gap. That's a distance of within 21 feet, and sometimes, and honestly, more often than not, much closer than that. The reaction time is minimum, and the action time and the reaction time is very, very limited, and it's really hard to get the kind of range that you need to. Here's the thing: you're talking about de-escalating someone from farther back with a long-range foam weapon. Well, at that point, it's going to be really hard to articulate who needs to be foamed because they're not really a threat anymore. And here's the thing: every police department has a use of force in their at their disposal, and basically the rule has always been you use one more than what's presented. So like, so verbal noncompliance is going to, you ideally want to deal with, say the next level up would be soft, open hand control techniques, which is, hey, just, putting your hand on their arm. So it's like, listen, let's go over here and talk about this. And then you're in an
position. Mr. Havoc, if I'm in a situation, let's say I've been drinking, let's say I'm feeling threatened, and then the officer tries to put their hand on me, I might just instinctively knock your arm right off me. At that point, I've assaulted an officer, and it's not out of anything more than me just like going into my reflex into being like, don't touch me right now. And at that point, I'm already on the losing end. And then let's say I knock an arm off of me, you put me in a arm lock. You're going to put me down, and I'm fighting because I'm in an animal state of response. This is how these things build. That's why I say a non-lethal weapon, where I'm saying, okay, I look like I'm a potential threat, and you immediately spray my ass down with some shit that makes me immobilized, but that's not going to kill me. Now the situation is controlled. Why hasn't this been an option? Why aren't these type of practices being implemented?
So let's look at it like this. You're talking about a very specific scenario. I gave a very general thing. Look, in a situation like that, it's scene safety is paramount. So say I'm called to a bar, and there's just a guy that's being a little rowdy. He doesn't want to leave, and I'm like, hey buddy, officer friendly here. Listen, these nice people have asked you to leave. I'm gonna have to ask you to come with me, etc. And that's the by and large majority of people are going to get along. Like, okay, I've gotten a little out of hand. Like that being said, that situation can go a million different ways, and there's not always just one right way to handle it. Sometimes just talking to somebody. You get compliance. Some people are beyond that point, and they're belligerent. As to your foam thing, I don't know. Feel free to submit a prototype, an idea to any department that available. And the reality is, I don't know. As a cop, I think the majority of the guys have been doing the job for a while. They're really good about verbally de-escalating situations, even like that, where someone's belligerent. And then you've got to decide, well, how long does this situation go on for? Because one of the things we've learned is that the longer a situation goes on, the tide tends to turn against the officer. And what that means is, so say now we're in a hands-on situation where I'm trying to get an arrest and control situation. If the no matter the circumstance, the longer the conflict goes on between the civilian and the law enforcement, the people seeing it tend to side with the non-law enforcement side. It's just one of those things that is. Um, it's but yeah, there's so okay. So now we've got your foam gun. We'd like these guys to at least have some good tactics and techniques as far as psychologically dealing with people. We've got to make sure they know how to drive. We'd like to make sure they know how to handle themselves. I mean, it's pretty important, right? And we gotta give them a good how long do you think officer training should be?
Shit, I don't know how long it is now. I think it's more a matter of quality over quantity. That's why I'd rather have I feel this way about the military too, along with the police. I'd rather have less forces that are more trained and more able. So
Okay.
I don't know how much time is put into it now. I don't feel like a year is too much. You go to college for even for an associate's degree is 2 years. I think if you put someone through training for a year, even 2 years is not unreasonable if I feel like someone is going to come out prepared to do the job, or maybe some sort of I get when you're like a rookie officer or something like that, you're with someone, you're kind of learning the ropes on the job. Something like that kind of makes sense as part of it. But I feel like this has to be presented by someone who's done the job and can speak to it from the inside to see how they can make it better.
And here's the thing. All that to say, look, the average cops in America, they're making like 40 grand a year. I mean, this is not, I think if you want if you want higher expectations, and here's the thing, it is not by and large, like it's a promotion by attrition type of job. A lot of guys don't make it outside of 2 or 3 years on the job.
That's
So
great.
what's that? And sometimes it's not because they're bad at the job. It's oh.
Sorry, I lost
Hey, you
you.
there?
Yeah, I lost you. We're back though.
Okay. Anyway, so a lot of guys are, they're on the job for 2 to 3 years. They realize, you know what? Hey, working midnights, dealing with all the bullshit that goes with the job. 40 grand a year. You know what? I think I'm gonna go sell cars. Like,
You know what? Hold on. Let me stop you really quick. I want to make sure this is still getting streamed to the channel that everyone can see this. Because I
okay.
think what we did is we just reached the max of our time because we're hitting 2.5 hours right now.
Okay. Oh, well, shit. I gotta go help my wife with the kids then.
Well, I mean, there's still more that I wanted to finish up and touch on that we didn't even get to. And I don't know if we set up a second date to do this or not. I'd rather just push on for another 45 minutes, but I think
Here, let's
hold
get.
on. Hold on. I think people are saying they can still see us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on. Jeremy, are you able to see us right now? Are we still live? Just respond in the comments if you guys can still see what's going on. I think they can still see us. So
Okay.
let's just push through. But we're going to kind of pick up the pace a little bit more going through. I guess they can see it. But go on, finish your thought.
Anyway, so I was saying, I mean, it's an impossible job to get right 100% of the time. Even when when your heart's in the right place, you've got a good team working with you, et cetera. Look, things still go wrong, people still die, and or get hurt, et cetera. And it's a lot to ask somebody for for not a whole lot of money. Let's just put it like that. And so you're going to find that a lot of the guys that stick with it for a certain amount of time. Um, there just comes a point where it's like, okay, now I'm working towards a pension. I'm gonna go along to get along, not make a lot of waves. I'm just trying to get through my shift. Because remember, man, like these shifts can be pretty intense. You're going from disturbance to car wreck to to God knows what to or and sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's a very vanilla, boring, safe shift, and everybody's pleasant and
That's a problem. This is part of the problem. This is the reformation we're talking about. When they're saying, first off, defund the police is a bad hashtag. That's not the right way to convey this message. We're going to work up to all that too. There's a better. Now they're talking about 8 to abolish, but I think that's not even getting the message out clearly or not. There's 8 can't wait, but the whole idea with 8 can't wait is this. Yeah, it can't wait. It should already be happening. So all this stuff is not clearly getting the message across. And they need to be able to give you the resources you need to do the job effectively as well, including more money and including being more picky. So that's what I'm saying. There's people out there doing these essential workers, okay? You or officers, school teachers, fucking transportation workers. There's certain people, they deserve to make more. This balance has to happen, and it's all part of this. Like I said, if we're in a third American Revolution right now, like all these things have to come to the surface to make us a more equitable and higher functioning society. But like I had said, it's not so much about what we need right now, because that's part of the discussion of reformation. What I think is more pressing at the moment is what we have to avoid, and that's this whole talk about the dark tetrad, like I had mentioned. What exactly do you know about the dark tetrad?
I'll tell you. I'm going to let you take the lead on that, and I'll come back.
Okay. So there's 4 qualities that they've most commonly found in killers, serial killers specifically, and those traits are narcissism. Okay, it's all about me first. Psychopathy, which is like almost a quickness to kill. I think that's what a psychopath is. You're just quick to hurt, maim, and kill. Okay, a psychopath. Machiavellianism, which is consistent plotting to achieve your end, and sadism, which is taking joy in the pain of others. Schadenfreude, but to the nth degree. And I just know, like when we had mentioned briefly how I had opportunities to get into the business world and the entertainment industry, I see a lot of that in leaders, and I'm positive it happens, in government and these jobs where you're seeking a position of power. And I'm just curious, like how much of these traits are being weeded out of potential cadets? Because if you have these people who now have the power to kill a badge, and you're putting them into high stress situations, these are almost the opposite of the type of people you need to de-escalate a situation.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I want to say that most recruiting and retention divisions are going to do the best job with the tools they have available, and by that I mean we're talking about a standardized psychological test, maybe a sit down with a shrink. We're talking about a background investigation that should include your previous employers, a list of people that know you well, a credit report. Those are important parts of the background process. So if someone makes it through all those, you're saying, hey, is that, are they weeded out in the academy? I mean, maybe, but I mean, personality disorders are, here's the thing, most sociopaths are pretty, they're pretty good about blending in, and you're not going to know it.
Notice I didn't say sociopath though. I'm a sociopath. I feel like I might have sociopathic tendencies. Okay, I don't hang out with a lot of people. I work graveyard shift. I don't want to just go blend in, but I'm not going to hurt anyone. I'm not a psychopath. I just am antisocial. You know what I mean?
Okay. But anyway, I'm sorry. What?
I'm not saying sociopath. I'm saying psychopaths. Sadist.
Understood. So yeah, it's but that's something that's going to be really hard to detect unless you're on the you're on the firing range, and the guy starts shouting out "Die motherfucker die" while he's shooting at a target, which might I add that to my knowledge that hasn't happened.
Recount though.
But I mean, it's just look, I think the majority of the populace in America, none of us are really trained to detect those signs based on workplace interactions. I mean, you look at well, I anyway. But no, like obviously, yes, there are things that go wrong, people that go wrong, and everyone's like, well, I never saw the signs. Okay.
Okay. Well, then,
Yeah.
okay, let's talk about another sign then. What about racism in the force?
Great topic. Okay. So let's, like, fact is, cops are people, and people have flaws. Now that being said, I watched, you know, I've seen a lot of really good examples of officers that said the wrong thing, made the wrong joke, made the in short, were assholes, and they got canned for it. I mean, plain and simple. Nowadays, all it takes, whether you're a cop or you sell furniture, man, you say the wrong thing, you put the wrong thing out there on social media. I mean, it usually becomes pretty self-correcting. You got to remember, your chief is appointed, and if you work for a sheriff's department, your boss is elected. So and these are pretty decent paying positions with a lot of responsibility. Yeah, they'll make an example out of you pretty quick.
Yeah, but we had listed all these things that were disqualifiers for the force. How is it that you aren't able to find out if someone is a racist before you give them a badge and a gun?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know how to answer that other than I mean, how do you really know what's in someone's heart with the resources that are available?
Okay.
You can like here's the thing. If I was a racist and and I'm applying and and here's the thing. If I've never uttered a word of anything indicative of that at a place where I work, how are and my friends know well enough to know to not let that part of my personality out there to the public when during a background investigation. Yeah, I mean, there's really no way to tell if someone's a racist. No
What about a
practical.
lie detector test? What if when people were being interviewed, you didn't let them know, you bring them in at some point by someone who is, these guys that used to go on Jerry Springer and Maury Povich and whatnot, you don't know what's coming. And then one day you're just strapped down, the thing is put on your chest, and they just start asking you a bunch of questions. And then one of them, they just start dropping slurs and hate speech and see how your heart rate responds and how you feel and what you're into and whatnot. Shouldn't that be part of a psychological evaluation?
So, actually, yeah, as a matter of fact, a polygraph examination is part of of your examination. And here's what they're. And in that situation, there's a reason that polygraphs are not admissible in court, and it's because they are not accurate, or they're not accurate enough. Same with CVSAs. That's a computer voice stress analyzer. You can't use them in court because they're just not exact enough. But they're a great tool in the recruitment process. But at the same time, anybody there are certain things that elicit a physiological response that's indicative of that can be indicative of deception or stress. So here's the thing: if I want this job and you ask me a question about my background, and I know what I've filled out on the questionnaire, man, and I'm thinking of that time in third grade, that I may have made fun of somebody for whatever. That's going to be going through my head. And you're like, hey, on this question, you seem to be showing signs of deception. You care to elaborate on that? there's a that is part of the process. Um, but look, the reality is, man, as far as you know, there's just no real practical way. Like if you don't, to determine if someone's a racist until you a work with them and b they let you know.
What about good cops telling on bad cops?
So it's a great way to get ahead. Um, and I'm being sincere. So one of the downsides about law enforcement is you're not really in a production business. There's really no way to establish yourself from your peers. Um, other than like, in some ways, say virtue signaling. Like, hey, sorry, I don't know how to bring this up, but so and so was, I think he pulled this chick over because she was hot. Oh, thanks for letting me know. Good on you. There's a lot more of that happening than guys covering up for general nefarious duties. Um, and I hate to say that, but like people talk about the blue code of silence and things like that. Um, yeah, like now, when I was a cop, guys could not wait. Especially if you were doing everything right, guys could not wait to to find a reason to throw you under the bus because it made their star shine a little brighter. It was actually a pretty. It was kind of a bummer about the profession at the time. So. If anything, it's I think cops are really quick to throw other cops under the bus. Obviously, there are exceptions.
Okay, so let's get to the meat of the issue here. You and I had spoken off the record briefly about killology, and I think that's a subject a lot of the general public doesn't know anything about. And
Okay.
to me, I think it's almost at the root of some of these major dysfunction within how policing is currently constructed. Not just the workload, which we've already touched upon. I think you guys are asked to do too much. I think you guys are underpaid. I think some of the people who are put into these positions are unqualified. That's all there on the surface. But this philosophy of killology, I think, is at root of why there are more people dying at the hands of officers. We don't even talk about like suicide by cop, which is like people know what to do to kind of get shot. we can figure it out. So can you just explain briefly to the person who's unfamiliar with what killology is?
You gave a bit of a misrepresentation on killology. So, on killing was a book by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, on basically this, how we became, short answer, so efficient at killing. And by efficient at killing, I mean our everything down to our school shootings, to our, you know, uh, to street level violence, to just things like the Orlando nightclub shooting, things like that. You know, the reality is, if we, and according to Dave Grossman, if we wanted to create a generation of killers, we have done everything we need to do with say with the invent the widespread use of violent video games where you're literally simulating executing people or just killing people at random, higher points for headshots. Our violent movies, the slasher flicks where we start rooting for the bad guy, like that that has an effect on us, and that was simply not part of our life, 50 years ago. Not at the level that it's at now. Furthermore, we're also very, very far removed from death right now as far as our life goes. You can live a full and complete life nowadays and never even see how your food is butchered. Versus you go back a couple generations, food came from the farm. There was a good chance you had to actually take a life to create food. Our lives are much more homogenized now, or much more sanitized now, where food comes in a package. Um, and so we're, in a sense, the only experience we have with death, um, be it an animal level or a or another level, is through our media senses, through our, through what we see on TV, what we see on video games, movies, etc. Um, Death isn't really a part of our life as much now as it was a couple generations past. Even if you look at the way that we conduct war, smart bombs, rifles, things like that. We're not talking muskets and bayonets. We're not talking up close hacking with with swords and spears. I mean, we're very very far removed, even at the operator level.
Mr. Hadley, I'm gonna have to stop you. I'm gonna have to stop you because what it seems like right now, you're saying you give me a lot of word salad. Okay, I've listened to everything you said, but I don't think it really touches upon what I'm really asking you. And when I'm asking about killology and the whole thing, these books that Grossman has given to a lot of the cadets in the training, where they broke society into 3 tiers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're
dogs, like this whole thing where you have to protect the flock and know that you have to shoot first because they're coming after you, type thing.
okay.
I want to give you a chance to explain it so I don't seem like I'm misrepresenting anything or leading it toward the outcome I'm looking for.
Yeah, so with Dave Grossman, I believe he was the first one that came up with the distinction between of sheep, sheepdogs, and wolves. And basically his premise was, your sheep are going to be your people that just want to go about their lives every day. And then you have the sheepdog, which are going to be the protectors, ideally your soldiers and your cops. And then you have your wolves, and that's going to be your people that are, that are basically ill-intentioned towards the sheep, and the sheepdogs being that layer between the sheep and the wolves. Yeah, and he explains the natural distrust between between the sheep and the sheepdogs. That it's, despite it wanting to be a symbiotic relationship, there's a certain degree of distrust because the sheepdog kind of looks like a wolf, has a lot of similar attributes. The difference being that the sheepdog would die to protect the sheep, and the wolf is solely intent on hurting them.
So when you're dealing with the general public as the quote unquote sheepdog, the officer, and you have a suspect, do you automatically view them as either a sheep or a wolf?
I would say it's never quite that cut and dry, and you gotta look at it like, there's not no, I don't think every officer looks at every person either as, all right, are you citizen or suspect?
Right.
Because the reality, like, no two situations are the same. If I'm going to a noise complaint and the guy's just playing his music too loud in his apartment, I'm not super worried about this guy's ill intention. When I think of wolves, I think of I think of the school shooters. I think the people that are hell bent on on ill intention. The guys that are, that are, their goal is to cause harm, to steal your car, rape your girlfriend, break into your house, etc. And that's, and we found that that's 1% of the population, less than. They are a statistical anomaly because by and large people are actually pretty decent.
So but that's part of the problem is with these routine traffic stops, we're getting a lot of suspects or civilians that are becoming agitated or they're not compliant,
Mm-hmm.
and it quickly escalates into a situation where, because we don't have these non-lethal weaponry as a first option, or we don't have some sort of buffer between when the police become involved and when the suspect is first dealt with, where these people keep dying. And it's predominantly been black people that have been killed. So this philosophy of kill or be killed in these situations, which is a lot of how I look at what killology is teaching. If you're in this situation, and you don't squash it. You had said earlier, the longer you take in a situation, the more opportunity it has to turn into a powder keg. You want to figure out a way. So there are a lot of people that I think are just, they're in these high stress situations, and they get to a point where it's shoot or chokehold or knee on the neck or whatever it might be. And then what we had just seen now, most recently with the George Floyd case, is certain people, it's like, you have the situation under control. He's complying. He's down. He's handcuffed. He's begging for some sort of, to get off his neck, to breathe, whatever it is, all these things. And at that point, it's under control already. I think when you're teaching officers that you have to be able and willing to kill at any moment, really, when you're out there. If it seems unsafe, there's going to be more opportunity to accidentally kill the wrong person than if there was either some buffer, which is what I think this whole movement now, where they're saying defund the police, but I think it really needs to be talked about, like creating these buffers, these safeguards in between. And I think this philosophy of killology is a lot at the heart with racism in tandem in all this civil rights violations that have been going on for generations.
I'm sorry, that I didn't hear a question in there.
Well, let's change it. Let's talk about the origin of the police. What do you know about the whole talk of and Black America's battle for equality, which is kind of getting more to where the situation is at right now. A lot of what they talked about with the origin of the police is they had said that after the Civil War, I mean, we're going to get into the cornerstone speech of the Confederacy and what the rebel flag actually symbolizes to a lot of those people in the South that still adhere to that, is like, this is who we are as a people, with the basis of racism baked right into the bread of their entire culture of the South. It's baked in. Where are you at now? You're in Arkansas or Missouri?
I'm in Arkansas.
Okay. Is the rebel flag part of your guys' state flag still?
No.
Okay. Was it ever, do you have a cross, the X anywhere in your guys' flag?
Do we have a what?
An X, like built into the flag?
No.
Okay. I think a lot of it is still really baked into the bread of it. And the origin of the police sheriffing came out of slave patrol. So after I guess segregation, the Jim Crow laws, the creation of certain ghettos and Black communities, there was policing already built in to kind of keep the former slave population under control. And you can Google these images online. It's the sheriff star, essentially. And they just say slave patrol on it. Now, there's obviously policing that has happened all throughout history, all over the country. But there is a section of policing in America that has these roots built into it. So, I mean, I guess if we're going to broaden this out to the bigger conversation, I think we have to understand that America is not just one or two things. It's not the North and the South. It's several territories. I say 11 territories with distinct cultures that they've grown out of. But the policing in all those areas have been shaped by what they view as what the bad guy is. And it's not just people committing crimes. I think a lot of it is shaped by the history of the territories and the cultures that they come out of. Is that a lot? I know that's a lot to throw into like a minute and a half spiel, but I I think there's going to be an inherent distrust of the police and policing until a lot of these factors are acknowledged. Let me jump ahead. I know there's no questions there. That was just me trying to lead it into the next thing. I don't even want to talk about restitution that haven't happened just yet.
Oh, hey, just in fair warning, I've got 5 minutes.
Okay, so let's jump into some of this quick stuff. The major players in the civil unrest. Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw stuff at you real quick. Trump is talking a lot about Antifa as the root of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about all that? Quickly.
What do I think about Trump talking about it, or what do I think about Antifa?
Yeah, the concept of Antifa.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the concept of Antifa, as it's pretty much put out there.
I think a lot of the message gets lost. Based on the messenger. I mean, I think we're seeing a lot. When I think of Antifa, and I think a lot of other officers will probably feel this way too. I'm seeing a bunch of entitled college kids that are just making a lot of noise. I'm still waiting for them to actually say what they want. They just seem to like their message is loud and clear. Hey, anti-Trump, which cool. Don't have a problem with that. I think it's just I'm not really sure what it is they're rebelling against other than Trump.
Okay. What about and like I said earlier, I consider myself anti-fascist, but I'm not part of any movement. But what about the Boogaloo movement? You know anything about that?
Yeah, I'll be the first time. I'm not real checked out on them. I see a bunch of dudes with tack gear and Hawaiian shirts, and they're real big on the Second Amendment. And I don't really. I'm not sure if they're white supremacists or if they're racist. I'm not really sure where they stand on that. And to be honest, I mean the mainstream media isn't real sure on that one either. But I mean they're
race war. This is what I've heard. They're looking to kind of push for a race war.
Okay. Yeah. No. I'm pretty sure they were the Second Amendment. They were the Second Amendment guys, and I think I think they were the ones that kind of came out in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. Because they're just that's what I'm remembering, and I might be wrong on that, but I think their whole thing was just don't infringe on my Second Amendment rights, and if I want to carry my AR in the parking mall, by God, that's my right as an American. Which is ridiculous.
What about the Proud Boys? What do you know about the Proud Boys?
I think pretty close to the same thing, but a little more. I want to say a little more white nationalist, but I'm not real checked out on them, to be honest.
But racist. Yeah. They're racist.
That's my impression based on what I've heard. But again, I could be wrong on that. I'm going to leave room to be wrong on that.
What about QAnon?
Seems to be kind of the we'll call it the young Trumps. I don't know. Like they seem to be just the answer to Antifa or the same demographic, just a little more right leaning.
But there's a potential misinformation campaign. Would you agree with that?
I would agree that that the world at large is subject to a misinformation campaign right now, and I don't think it's limited to either side.
Would you consider these different forms of domestic terrorists?
Ooh, that's tough. I'd say they all have the potential to be, but so far, I mean, other than that ridiculous fucking Chaz movement in Seattle, I mean, look, anything if it goes too far could get looped in there. But right now, I think we're just kind of giving everybody enough of an audience to let's see what they're going to do with it.
All right, so let's kind of just end on this. This is to kind of wrap it all up. The whole place we're at right now is essentially a revolution seeking criminal justice reform.
Wait,
So
say that one more time, buddy.
right now, where we're at, this is a revolution, or the first stages of a revolution, seeking criminal justice reform. Okay, that's the basis of it. And like I said, Black Lives Matter is obviously at the forefront. That's kind of the spirit, but we want these major changes. And some of the stuff that's out there is the concept of murder is murder, you know, officer or not, murder is murder, you know. Do you already disagree with that? Is murder justifiable sometimes?
Okay, so I think we're mixing definitions. There's there's killing and there's murder and then there's homicide, which kind of covers all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, you're accountable for your actions, and but that being said, we do have a hindsight rule. And what that means is, you need to be judged on the information, on the decision you make with the information you had available at the time. So so a good example would be like, let's take, I don't know, an adult with autism with I don't know, a toy gun playing cops and robbers, breaks, is playing with his friends. I don't know, and he trips and falls through a guy's door. All this guy knows is somebody crashed in his door, and he's holding what looks like a gun, and he shoots him. Okay, that's not that, yes, that's, a homicide occurred. It wasn't a murder. The guy thought the guy was kicking in his door, etc. He had a responsibility. So, but based on the information he had available at the time, he made the right decision.
Do you think we need to prosecute some of these killers when it seems out of bounds, whether officer or not?
I believe, yeah. So that being said, I think the punishment for officers needs, I think it should be penalty enhancement. And so what I mean by that is, so anything you do in the commission of a felony gets an automatic enhancement. So say I'm robbing a gas station, and then I'm making my getaway, and I run over a girl and she dies. Okay, if I wasn't robbing a gas station, I just accidentally ran over a girl, that's manslaughter, right? But because it happened in the commission of a violent felony, it's now murder one.
Mm-hmm. Now, three final questions to wrap this up, because I know you got to go. What do you think is being lost in the message when you hear defund the police?
I think it puts the guys that are still cops. I think it puts them in a position like where they're like, well, you want me to do this shit for free? I think it's it just sucks. I mean,
that's not. But you get that's not what they're saying, right?
Of course, yeah, I do having listened to it, but just initially, it's like imagine someone saying defund truck drivers. You know what I mean? You're like, well, what the fuck? It's just not a very practical message. It's not very practical messaging. It's not something that's going to incite a good dialogue.
Nope.
But yeah, look, I think I don't think defunding the police is really the answer. I think the answer is always going to be you're going to come down to budget, training, and recruitment. But
okay, but there's definitely a problem in messaging. I can agree with that. What about, have you heard this whole 8 can't wait?
I've heard. It's just recently entered my periphery. I'm not really sure what they're wanting, what the ask is, other than they want criminal justice reform now. Which great. Let's just be practical about it. Like, give us an actionable step. Like, we want an end to systemic racism. Okay, what's that look like? What's a practical step we can implement right the fuck now?
Which is what they're talking about this last one, and I suggest everyone Google this and one on this whole 8 to abolition. The whole idea of abolishing police is crazy, but it might make sense in some places if they're really willing to police their own communities. It's fully outside the box thinking, and I don't think across the board this is a one size fits all answer to every situation across the country, because like I said, we are constituted of several territories, but it is worth looking at. I don't even want to get into it too much right now. I'd rather everyone do their research. So let's look here. Check out that 8 abolition and view that from there, because that's kind of the jump off point where right now, as far as instituting some of these changes that need to take place. But
yeah, my computer's shut down right now, but yeah, man, I'll look into it.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. You know, I think hopefully there's some stuff in there. There was a lot. It was a lot more than I thought, but there was a lot of ground to cover.
All right, man.
All right. Take it easy. Talk to you later.
See you, bro.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.